Hello, everybody.
Hey, hey, hey.
All right, so there we go. Well, welcome to the Mikestand, everybody. Today is Sunday, August the 11th, 2024. So, of course, we have our weekly panel show where, of course, we'll hopefully get some more panelists on soon enough here. So, as we get started here, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we get some more friendly people in here to engage. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. So, as we wait for more people to come in, Rick, would you like to do an intro?
Oh, yeah, I guess I will do something. Yeah.
You know the
I
shtick,
just,
right?
yeah, I'll just grab a link to my channel and put that link in the chat. Because, heck, I lost another viewer within subscriber within the last couple of days. I'm down to 829. I'm going down instead of up. I need to go up, up and away. I need to do that Superman thing. So, if you're watching this, and you click that link, check out my channel. Hopefully you like it. If you do, hit that subscribe.
Yeah.
I'm starting to do a little bit more art content, especially within my Tuesday night stream. So, and then hopefully once I get my own place, I will be doing a lot more
Yeah.
art
Actually,
type
you
stuff.
know what? Because I was dropping a now. Granted, I know specifically why one subscriber. Right, that's why I have a good idea. But I'd been dropping some subscribers, a couple here and a couple here, and then but went back up. So, um, but what I think is happening right now, I think YouTube's getting a little goofy again. Um,
Yeah,
because I might have already mentioned this to you um, before, but I think they're right now they're going through. I think what they're doing is I guess they're going through their quote unquote subscriptions rules or whatever, and maybe
yeah,
some of the people who haven't been on in a while. They're
yeah. They
just kind
like to unsubscribe people once in a while from people's channels for some legitimate reasons and just probably some unlegitimate reasons, just because they can.
of
It's always been a problem with, well, maybe not always, but ever since I've been on YouTube trying to make it go, this has always been a bit of a problem
yeah.
for YouTube likes to unsubscribe people that subscribe to your channel.
Yeah. So that's like for me, I was all the way up to 223 at one point, then I went back down to 218. Now I'm back up to 220. So, but I think
Well,
part of it is they're just YouTube right now is just going through a period where they're like I guess just purging the roles as it were. But anyways, for those of you who are watching this, there's the link to Rick's channel if you guys want to go check that out. Subscribe to him. Check out his content. Anyways, let me just do something here, and then I guess we can talk a little bit about what's on tap for tonight here in a moment. Then I do a couple things here.
yeah, somebody just to keep things being talked about. I'm somebody who does his own comic books, produced as people see. I've got one.
What was that, Rick? You sound like you're mumbling.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just trying to keep things talking and saying something while you were doing what you're doing, which is probably just putting those
Yeah.
things in the chat. I was just saying about that I actually produced my own comic books. As see right there.
Huh. Oh, you released it? You got it all printed and stuff like that?
Oh, that's number two. It's been released and printed for a while. I'm working on number three for Canadian Shield at the moment. I
Hmm.
just Yeah, I've had number 1 there for a while, but I figured I would change it to number 2 tonight. So I'll have number
All
2
right.
up there for a while. And then I'll
All
send it
right.
to Snowdrift number 1.
Well, speaking of returning features, as it were, um, so this past week, Chris Braley finally put up a new episode of Indie Comic Showcase this
Oh,
past week, which I of course featured on Thursday. So there's some interesting stuff there. So which will lead into a couple of articles that we'll be going over tonight if we get to those. Depending on how things go with our conversations and stuff like that. So, hmm.
yeah. So, of course, Friday night you had your regular program of the Retro Comics retrospect, and you did that with Apex Comics, if I'm right.
Yes, I did. Actually, I guess we should just go ahead and get started. Get started.
Into that. I was going to
Yeah,
say, how did that go?
guess that we're now into it a few minutes here. So, um,
Yeah.
all right, yeah. So this past Friday, of course, as everybody knows, right now we're going through comics that went on sale in March of 1940. This past Friday, I had Apex from Apex Comics on as we went over comics that went on sale from Fawcett Comics, which, of course, Wiz Comics Volume 1, Issue 4.
Had the original Captain Marvel.
With the original
The
Captain
real
Marvel.
Captain Marvel.
Ibis the Invincible. Master Comics Volume 1, Issue 2 with Masterman, and Slam Bang Comics with Diamond, Slam Bang Comics Volume 1, Issue 2 with Diamond Jack. So we, of course, first time we read through Wiz Comics. We read the Captain Marvel story and the Ibis story. So in the Captain Marvel story, where, of course, I introduced everybody to Busha Savannah, the daughter of the good daughter of Dr. Thaddeus Bodog Savannah, not to be confused with the bad daughter, Georgia Savannah.
And that's who they really showed in the last one, right? Captain Marvel. Well, Shazam movie. They showed Savannah, if I'm correct, right? Oh no, he was in the first movie. They showed Savannah in the first movie, right? For Shazam.
Oh, Savannah was Captain Marvel's Lex Luthor, basically.
Yeah.
Basically, the genius supervillain, taking on the physical, the solid physical specimen.
Yeah.
I don't know about the movie. I don't know about the Shazam movie. I never watched it, so
okay.
I don't know as much about that. But in what the story we read, and well, because Busha is apparently a resident of Venus. She's actually the queen of Venus, the planet Venus. Like she and her brother she's probably considered like the probably the nicest of the Savannahs. She's like the most good. I mean, Magnificent's pretty good too. She and Magnificent are usually together, while Junior, Thaddeus Junior, and Georgia are the bad apples. They're the ones who usually are, and will later be, more in line with their father. But in this story, they had Busha running. Basically, Dr. Savannah was trying to get Busha elected president of the United States.
Okay. First female president.
Now the thing about Busha Savannah, blonde-haired beauty, whose main power is pheromone control.
Okay.
Basically, men are just so in awe of her beauty that they just their wills shrink. They're compelled. A lot of times, they're usually compelled by Busha's beauty to obey her.
Yeah.
So basically, of course, Dr. Savannah had Billy Batson kidnapped and gagged, and then exposed him to a basically a memory altering ray to where he couldn't remember the word Shazam.
Word?
Yeah, the magic word. And then he was able to escape the machine eventually, but he still couldn't remember the word. And then when the thugs went after him again, Yusha came in and basically saved him. And she didn't know, of course, she didn't know that Billy was Captain Marvel. But it's kind of funny. This is one of the rare occasions where the villain actually knows the secret identity of the hero.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were reading it, pretty fun time with it. Of course, one of the things that Apex is bringing up about the story is that he was seeing a lot of similarities there in terms of the plot, in terms of what's going on now. In terms of some of the people in power and how they're acting and all that. I wish Apex was here to explain it further. I think he could explain it better than I could, because I think he was the one who really caught that in there. But oh well. But the cover for the comic was pretty interesting too. You had basically Busha all tied up in this this tentacled monster, and Captain Marvel trying to save her. Even though that had absolutely nothing to do with the story. But that was an interesting thing. And then, so eventually, Captain Marvel did thwart their plan. He basically attempted to send both Dr. Savannah and Busha back to Venus, only for Dr. Savannah to escape the rocket and leave Busha to continue heading back to Venus. So that's how the story ended there. And then the next story we read, of course, was Ibis the Invincible, the rescue of Boyville. So in the previous issue that we read, Ibis had established the town of Boysville, which was just orphan kids just brought together to run their own town. Well, in the time since he had left them, some gangsters had invaded the town and basically enslaved all the boys and made them workers in a munitions factory. Well, the mayor of Boysville, a boy himself, sent word to Ibis that they needed his help, and he went there. And then after Ibis had, and I know that Apex is really fond of the Ibis stick, the magic stick that Ibis uses. And that was a pretty good story too. I think he preferred the Ibis stick over Diamond Jack's magic ring.
Was Diamond Jack another story you read, or another character in that?
Yeah, Diamond Jack was another story we read. Was the one after the Ibis story, but
Fawcett seems to like going with a whole bunch of magical stuff. Magical word, magical cane, or magical stick, a magical ring.
Yeah. So basically, to continue the story though, after Ibis had basically defeated the villains and had them all put in jail, the master criminal known as Murder Malone, he escaped jail and then ended up kidnapping Princess Taya. And they have him going off with Princess Taya in a plane in the story to be continued. So there was that. And then we had the Diamond Jack story where he would utilize a magic ring to help defeat criminals. And then we had Masterman. So, it was a pretty good set of stories there, 4 of them we got in.
Cool.
12, not 21, 31, 38 pages, I think, altogether. And we got to just a little over 2 hours there. So, again, kind of wish Apex was able to join us so he could further explain the context, but what he meant particularly did. But it's So this week, when I have you on this week, we'll be going over books that went on sale from Fiction House. Of course, Jumbo Comics, Volume 1, Issue 15, Jungle, Planet, and Fight Comic, Volume 1's issues 5. So, of course, the more well-known features we'll probably be covering, of course, will be Sheena, the Queen of the Jungle, and Weird Stories of the Supernatural, Stuart Taylor. So that's what you'll have to look forward to. Oh, and did you want me to send you? Did you want me to send you the preview material, or no? Because I know sometimes I forget.
You can or cannot. It's up to you. Well, obviously you're going to send me the link. I'm just not sure whether I'll get to read it. I know I haven't a lot in the past when I said to send it, but if you want to send it, fine. If not, fine.
It's better if we just do it more fresh,
Yeah.
So, all right. So, anyways,
any articles tonight that you might have to read, or
but
topics that you might want to talk about?
before we do get to the articles, I mean, there was something else that did cross my mind that we could talk about. And I don't know how long this will, of course, go, but
yeah, well, that's good. Hey, we'll take it as it goes. If we seem to we'll talk about whatever for so long. If it seems to get a bit repetitive, then we move on to an article or something.
Yeah, I've got a couple articles we go over if that happens. We need to, but with that, so what the thing I was thinking about this morning, because I did recently hear this, right? So I guess people have, I guess in some of the more recent, like Warner Brothers cartoon films, like Looney Tunes Back in Action, and the latest Space Jam movie, they decided to keep Pepe Le Pew out of the movie.
Yeah, because of his.
Well, okay, so yeah, well, what was that?
Because of his instincts, shall we say?
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, they felt like, okay, we don't want him in here because of how he's been portrayed. But the thing is that he's an animal. You see, I was just starting to think a little bit more about that. But
yeah, he's an animal.
But, well, the thing is that because a lot of people, especially now with what's been going on the last 6-7 years here, 8 years, with all the Me Too stuff and going on like that, a lot of people are down on Pepe Le Pew because he basically would at times force him, in their view anyways, would force himself on the cats in his cartoons,
Yeah,
and I of course I've been watching, I've been watching a lot of Golden Age stuff here and there, Golden Age, Warner Brothers cartoons here and there, and of course, he's even had some cases where he's actually literally chained up, or tied up some of his prey, as it were. But what people don't understand, what people tend to forget, is even though a lot of the cartoon characters that we grew up with, whether you go back to Golden Age, you go back to like Warner Brothers, Disney, Terry Toons, or the ones in the '60s, ones in the Silver Age, like Hanna-Barbera and stuff like that. People tend to forget that, even though they're anthropomorphic characters, they're still animals first and foremost. Now, I think I've explained to you the term anthropomorphic, right?
Yeah, and that's just making animals a little bit more humanized, for lack of a better word.
Or basically giving animals a bit more human character. Like, for example, Yogi Bear being able to walk on, just walk normally on his hind legs, right? And a lot of the Hanna-Barbera characters, instead of going around on all fours, they're up on their hind legs like they're human.
Yeah, and they talk and act a lot like humans.
Now, what a lot of people tend to forget, though, is that in the animal kingdom, there is no such, animals don't court each other like humans do, right?
No.
They just they're driven strictly
Well,
by instinct.
well,
There's
some of them have a quote unquote courting ritual, but a lot of animals don't.
yeah.
A lot of them just
A lot of
whatever.
animals in the wild, just they get the urge, they just do it.
Yeah,
Um, it's instinct.
and even in the ones that quote unquote mate for life, that's exactly it. With um,
Now
the
maybe some of the ones
females
who
and
are domesticated might have some courting rituals, as it were. Or well, I mean, in some depending upon certain in certain packs of animals, of course, there's certain courting to get the best mate possible. But a lot of
yeah,
times, I've seen some films where I remember seeing one film in one of my science classes where they had a cat just all just pounce on another cat you know trying to
yeah,
procreate it you know
yeah. Get
um
busy, shall we say?
yeah and it's just kind of funny because people they basically getting upset at a cartoon for doing what literally comes naturally for them.
For an
Oh, we
animal,
don't
yeah.
like Pepe Le Pew because he's a predator, and of course he is because all animals are predators.
Well, technically they're not all predators, but I get what you mean. Like
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was just because I was, and of course, as I've been watching a lot of Golden Age cartoons, over the past months there, and when I watch them and I will read some of the trivia notes on IMDb. There's another thing they talk about from back then when the Hayes Code was more in effect. And they talk a lot about this in terms of when you have younger characters being brought on, and because back then, you couldn't have a man or woman with a child, unless they were married. You know, they would, the Hayes Code would be on you. And we've seen, there's a number of cartoons where you've seen, fathers and son, like for example, with Spike and Tyke from MGM, right? From the
yeah,
from the Tom and Jerry cartoon, Spike and Tyke. You see a lot of interactions between Spike the father and Tyke the son, but we've never seen Mrs. Spike, as it were, as some people have,
yeah.
have
And then they could get away with it because they were animals, not humans, probably.
well, that and people were and even people who commented on that were amazed. Well, yeah, which was rare for the time. You also saw the case in with Sylvester and Sylvester Jr. in the Looney Tunes cartoons,
Yeah,
uh, where father and son again. Particularly when you'd have Hippity Hopper coming in. The kangaroo that they thought was just a giant mouse. And talk about teaching his kid to catch mice and all that. But another aspect that they talked a lot about, particularly with Mickey and Donald and Disney,
yeah.
Bugs in a way in for Warner Brothers, even Woody Woodpecker with his little niece and nephew.
Well, heck,
He's,
Donald had three
you
nephews. We never saw either of their parents.
Hold on, I'm still listening, but
Yeah, like I said, we never seen Huey, Dewey, and Louie's mom and dad.
huh?
I said we never seen Huey, Dewey, and Louie's mom and dad.
Uh huh. Yeah,
We
and
just
I
seen
mean,
their Uncle Donald and their Uncle Scrooge.
uh
You
huh.
know, so we never seen Donald's brother or sister. And
Yeah, and then you of course also had Popeye and his nephews and Sweepy, right? You
yeah,
know, so what they would often talk about, what a lot of people would take note of in a lot of those situations.
so the critics had ways of getting around all this stuff, or the
Right.
writers.
Well, what
it wasn't his son; it was his nephew.
Is that that's why the whole concept of having characters have nephews it was brought in. It was to the thing was to show to get the main character to show their parenting skills without actually having to marry them. Now, of course, Popeye would get a cartoon in the late '80s, Popeye and Son, where he and Olive were depicted as being married and having a son, and then Bluto was also depicted as being married and having a son. You know,
Yeah, who wasn't? He was married to somebody other than Olive Oil, I believe.
Yeah. Well, no, it was somebody. It wasn't Olive Oil. It was somebody else. But basically,
that's what I said. Somebody other than Olive Oil.
Right. So. Anyway. So that was the thing I've seen a lot in the Golden Age comic. People noted that where they'll bring in nephews to do a
role of a son.
To give the characters a chance to show their parenting skills.
Yeah.
And it did lead to some very interesting, like with Popeye and his nephews, you had Peepeye, Pipeye, Poopeye, and Popeye, right? You had Huey, Dewey, and Lewis with Donald there. Even they said I think Bugs had Clyde, I think was his nephew. Let's see.
Yeah.
But having characters. Well, I mean, even in some of the Tom and Jerry cartoons, they would show kind of, like I remember there was one cartoon, and it wasn't a case where Tom was actually trying to be a parent; he was actually trying to eat the bird. But he would get hold of a duck egg, it hatched, and the duck just blindly thought that Tom was its mother.
Yeah.
And Tom spent a good chunk of the episode trying to eat the little duckling. Voiced by Red Coffee, of course, the late great Red Coffee. Only for Jerry to keep trying to save it, but the little duck didn't get a clue. The duck honestly believed for a good chunk of the episode there. It wasn't until almost the very end where the little duckling finally realized, oh, Tom's not my mommy, and he just very sadly said, well, I mean, okay, Mommy, I'll let you eat me. And then Tom goes, no! So
cartoons back then were definitely interesting.
Well, I mean, I was just marveling, because the thing that I was marveling most, because I've been thinking about this, because I know I heard about the whole Pepe Le Pew thing like a couple months back. I think they were talking.
Pepe Le Pew was a couple years ago now, but unless somebody brought it back up.
Where the outrage was because they didn't want him included because but the thing was he was like, for real, guys, I know that these characters are anthropomorphic and everything, but you have to understand they're animals too. It's actually natural for them. They don't like, even the quote unquote supposed victims, right? Supposed victims in Pepe Le Pew's supposed victims. In the real world, animals wouldn't even take it at they just let it happen a lot of times because, again, it's natural. It's
they fight back or they fight back and
are you going to sit there and turn around? And I'm not necessarily saying you specifically, Rick. I'm just saying these people get upset about Pepe Le Pew and all that. Are you going to then sit around and just call Mother Nature a madam or something like that? Like,
of course,
I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. Part of the reason why I wanted to bring this up because just how kind of ridiculous some of the reasoning is for this. The reaction to some of this stuff is. Just how ridiculous and how they just want to bury the past. When there's a lot of good stuff from the past. and I mean they had even more sense, but it's kind of like it's kind of funny because back in the golden age and all that into the silver age, they'd have a lot of some people would call it right wing censorship. Where anything they were and I know Tim's commented on it before too, where and Elk tried to comment on it, and I'm kind of fine, well, okay, not censorship as a whole, but I would prefer, obviously it would be nice to just let people, and instead of like what Elk tried to do all the time, sexualize everything, I'd prefer to look at a lot of these cartoons in the more with a more innocent eye, as it were, and just take them for what they were. And of course, you have even a lot of the cartoon characters, a lot of the animal cartoon characters, don't really have a whole lot of clothing on themselves. They're pretty much naked throughout. Yeah, you might have like Quick Arm McGraw may have his gun belt. Yogi has the necktie.
Yeah, but heck, you look at Bugs. He doesn't have any clothes on. Daffy, doesn't. I think any of the ones in the Bugs.
All the animal characters don't usually have clothes on or have minimal clothes on. But it's not a big deal because it's not like anything. Now granted, the female characters like Cindy Bear might have a dress on, and even though I don't think they necessarily quote unquote draw breast on characters like
Cindy Bear, but I think heck, the cat in most of the Pepe Le Pew things, or in all the Pepe Le Pew, the cat never had any clothes on. The female cat.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure.
I don't really, and granted, I know some people might think, well, you're just perpetuating. No, I don't think watching a Pepe Le Pew cartoon is going to turn you into an artist. Okay, I don't really think anybody's going to,
say, how many people
do it? I think I'm going to go do that too. I think that's just utterly ridiculous if anybody,
because people
even thinks that.
Most kids see them as animals, and their behavior is not to be replicated. Like I think 99.9% of people that watch that stuff never got any ideas to do anything, close to what they actually do in the cartoons. Do you see people running off a cliff?
Yeah, and I think what like particularly for kids when they're watching, let's say, a Pepe Le Pew cartoon, because remember, little kids, little boys, little girls, the whole idea of intermingling is like, ew, no, I don't want cooties. I don't want cooties. I don't want cooties.
But suggesting somebody is going to replicate Pepe Le Pew is like suggesting somebody's going to replicate Wile E. Coyote and try to run off a cliff to get a Boyd or something like that. No, nobody's going to try to do that. They know that they're going to fall and hurt themselves if they do that. They're taught that.
Mm-hmm.
They're also taught you don't go chasing things like that. Unless you got a gun and it's rabbit season.
Yep. So, I mean, I was just kind of thinking about like the censorship they're trying now with Pepe Le Pew, and then the censorship back when Pepe Le Pew was around, and
when he was first created.
Well, yeah, I mean I was again, of course, the thing with as I said, the idea of them utilizing the nephews to display, parenting skills. But even again, and even going back to Spike and Tyke and having a lot of the father son type interactions, which was a good thing. I mean,
yeah. But again, Sylvester and Son.
Yeah, now for all we know, they would naturally assume people like would naturally assume that there was a case where I think there was a cartoon where Daffy was actually depicted with a wife and kids one episode, and she just looks like walking all over him. So they've had widow stories in there too at times. Like when Yosemite Sam trying to get the money of a widow, and so she'd treat him like like garbage and made him play with her, you know, with her big yet very immature son.
Yeah.
So, but um, but and going back like to Disney, for example, Huey, Louie, and Dewey, their interactions with their Uncle Donald and their Uncle Scrooge, and then of course years later in the late '80s, early '90s with Ducktales, right?
Yeah.
Where the boys were sent to live with their Uncle Scrooge there at that time. So I mean, it's just I was just marveling at the I just marvel.
Ridiculousness of it all.
I was just marveling at how people are reacting these days to Pepe Le Pew and all that, because the funny thing about that is, even though he's anthropomorphic, he's still an animal, and he's just doing, if anything. And I've seen some, as I said, I've seen some, videos out there where animals they just go for it. They don't worry about whether or not they're going to be arrested for arping somebody or SA or anything like that. They just go for it.
Yeah, there's no such thing as those concepts in their realm.
Yeah. All right. Well, it would have been interesting if
Yes.
we had another person, to interject there, but as it were, I guess we don't. So,
Yeah. I
check one
guess
more
on
thing real quick,
to
and I think yeah, to check one more thing, and then I think we will get into the article, which basically which will be continuations of what we're already what we kind of previously covered, just kind of more to
a
it.
small update, maybe.
Oh, actually, we have somebody who just came in. Let's Mookie Juki cartoons. We have Metal here. Okay, well, maybe we can get his. Hey, Metal.
Hello.
Let me. Mookie Juki cartoons. We'll explain into detail later.
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite cartoon from 1926? I don't have one because I haven't seen a whole lot in 19. First out, 1926. Most all the cartoons at that time were
Your question
silent.
is comic.
Oh, comic. Oh, what's your favorite comics from 1926? Well, there weren't. I don't think there were any comics back then. They might have had comic strips and papers, but there weren't any comic books. I mean, I think the first even though based on what my research says, we had the first, they started having the first comic books coming out in like 1933, but some people said that Dell may
No, there
have
was
come
definitely
with
stuff
an
before
earlier version in 1928 with Funny Pages Volume 1. So,
We have comics where collection comics like Danger Trail going all the way back to the early 20s.
All right. All right. Well, Metal, how are you doing today?
I'm doing.
All right. Before we kind of move on, did you want to do an intro real quick? Talk about anything you're doing or anything like that?
No.
All right. We have
No, I'm
another
good.
question, and that's one I think you can answer. It was Cat 1919.
Well, 1918 technically, but it was at the end of the year, so I guess you can count. Felix the Cat is my favorite cartoon character ever. Just period. I love all the old stuff. Technically started out as a comic character for like the first year of his life in comic strips before he actually became animated by Pat Sullivan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Okay, it looks like most of them some comics that were in 1926. The Adventures of Tortor, Destiny wordless novel. This other one looks like French. The other one looks like Spanish.
Yeah, let's see. And BJ here's
and Little Nemo.
Well, I was
when
going to actually
it
bring that up. Little Nemo is probably my favorite comic that was running at that time.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Well, Little
I,
Nemo and Slumberland, I believe, Wonder McKay, right?
Winsor
uh,
McKay, yep. And technically it wasn't a comic book, but he just said comics, not comic books. And it was more akin to modern comic books than most things that ran in the newspaper because he got an entire page for every entry of it.
Yeah. When is Urusei Yatsura season 2 dub going to be released? High Dive Sentai dubbing better do it.
Well, if it's going by the same pacing as the last season, after season 1 ended, it wasn't until like the fall season that the dub actually came out. Like it ended in the end of spring and then it came out in dub. So I'm gonna assume in the next few months.
Alright, so anyway, and we got enough. We had some people. Metal opinion of Rama 1/2, same studio as Vinland
Yeah,
Saga
Mappa
season 2.
is doing it. I am super excited. I've been excited. I've been holding off because like the episodes like 5 through 12 of season 1 have already been leaked. They're low quality, but I don't want to watch the like. I pirate most of my stuff anyway. I'm not even gonna like deny that, but I don't want to watch the leaked versions. I want to start at episode 1, so I'm gonna wait till October when it comes out. But that's Rama 1/2's my favorite comic slash I guess animated series. So yeah, I'm super thrilled for that. I didn't realize it was actually going to be happening the way it is. I thought it was going to be like Urusei Yatsura where they're going to hyper condense everything. But the way it's looking at is they're actually going to be doing full seasons, which makes sense because if you look at sales, Ranma 1/2 is Rumiko Takahashi's highest selling or most profitable work that she's made.
Yeah, let's see. And we got at the
Phoenix
Amex
too.
has the episodes of Rama 1/2. I guess that's a streaming site, I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah. Anyways, before you came in, did you hear what we were talking about just before you came in?
Yes, I did. I didn't really have much to
Any
say about
thoughts?
that conversation. Only thought I had is technically you guys said that Huey, Dewey, and Louie's mother is never shown, which is technically true in the cartoons until like 2014 when they brought her back in. But she has been depicted many times, even as early as 1937, in the comics, including Donald's Nephews, the comic that was supposed to coincide with the first episode that Huey, Dewey, and Louie came in.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I must say
Duck.
I've never read the comics for.
Well,
You
we'll
know,
the comics were way better than the shows were.
We'll eventually get to it on the historical comic retrospect. I can, most likely.
So
But
that's probably why I never knew about them all.
Right. But anyway, Metal. What I was bringing up was I was thinking about this like this morning when about and I guess Rick was even saying it was more like a couple years ago, but a lot of the hoopla that came out about like I think when the latest version of Space Jam came out, people were saying how they wanted how they were trying to censor Pepe Le Pew because because of how he was portrayed.
Oh yeah, so it was a part of the conversation I didn't really have any opinion on.
Yeah, and the aspect of it was I was looking at that, and I was also looking back at the censorship they were doing. One of the things they were talking about a lot about back in the golden age when they were talking about how they would show characters. The thing they would do, because this is often noted in when I look at the notes on IMDb and all that. But one of the things I was pointing out, because of the Hays Code and all that, how they were depicting, characters showing parenting skills without actually being married. We talked about a number of, the characters that like Popeye and Olive Oil with Popeye's nephews and Sweet Pea with, as we're.
Oh yeah, no, I heard all that.
Yeah, so
I was eating.
So basically, I just thought that was kind of interesting. But anyway, we got a few more questions from Dead Sea Pirate here. Let's see. Let's see. What it what is the Rini series by Takahashi? And there's no dub for it.
Renee, Circle of Reincarnation is another one of those like uh, boy with some supernatural thing about him and girl that is tsundere and eventually falls in love with him stories. It takes place at high school. He's kind of like a reaper, and there's like exorcism that happens, and like the whole thing, like they call him a reaper. He's really just like an exorcist with supernatural background to him. But it's like high school mysteries, but it's more of a rom-com, so it falls more in line with like the Ranma stuff than it does with, say, Inuyasha. It was the series that was in between Inuyasha and Mao, her current one, which Mao is more like Inuyasha.
So
And it was popular, but it wasn't as popular as the manga was in Japan. So at no point did anybody feel like it would sell in the West. I mean, they didn't think Ranma would to begin with. I mean, over here we only got it in direct-to-video form, despite it being the highest-selling property in Japan that she's ever done. And internationally, it still technically outsells Inuyasha. But yeah, I think that's probably why it never got a dub.
So what's your favorite anime dubbing? All of you. So I guess they want to know all of. I guess we can start with metal, then go to Rick, then I'll finish up there.
Yeah, I was sort of wonder what was meant by that. Because this is me like, what's your favorite dubbing studio, or what is your favorite dub?
That's a good question. Are you basically asking dubbing studio, or are you asking like what our favorite series that's been dubbed is? So I guess
I would probably lean on the side of what series. We could answer both.
We'll give them a chance to. I'm going to move on to questions here because people are like popping in.
I was just going to say we could easily answer both of those.
Yeah. So Kat Thomas does Shinobu in the dub version of Urusei Yatsura. Making sure you were aware of that, Mike. Well, I mean, I haven't watched this version of Urusei Yatsura yet. Might at some point down the line, and I think I recently did hear Kat Thomas. I think I'm watching. I think she's involved with Princess Principal, which I'm watching right now. So, let's see. What is the Lord Markman and Vandal's anime, Mike? I have no idea because I haven't heard of those before. Anticipated. Let's see. Anticipated anime for 2025.
I guess he's asking what we anticipate. I'll just say whatever current My Hero Academia season they're on. I gotta catch up on that.
No, well, the manga just ended.
Yeah. I watch Vinland on Netflix. I probably will at some point if I haven't. Just don't know when. Let's see. Now we got XS Slapador or whatever.
I'm pretty sure that just says XX11 Superior XX, which usually in old internet you put like X's and stuff on the end of your username just to be cool. That's what people use always. So it's just 11 Superior.
All right, 11 Superior. Out of all the dubbing, Bang Zoom does the best job in my opinion. They do
pretty good.
Yeah. Let's see. Sentai failing to dub, and Sentai's just not getting as many opportunities because Bang Zoom and Sony's pretty much starting to really monopolize the whole industry. Would you agree with that?
I don't know if it's in monopolizing, but they are definitely being hyper aggressive about it. Right, they're trying to take as many opportunities from other people as possible. They aren't inherently succeeding, especially because a lot of the stuff that I have seen dubs of lately, I've been seeing stuff that weren't what would formerly be Funimation dubs, but are now Sony Crunchyroll dubs.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of the stuff I'm watching aren't even dubbed by them.
And
It's just
well,
they're hyper aggressive.
one of the reasons is with the localization. Where if we do get around to the articles, Rick and I have, of course, been going through some articles lately, on the manga localization, like how Shogakukan had recently decided to start doing AI translations as opposed to sending them out west, and we're gonna we get a chance to here take a look at a couple articles there. If we ever get through all these chats, people are still. But we'll see on that. Let's see now. Both.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
I guess going back to favorite anime dubbing studio favorite, and okay, so I'll let Metal go first. So favorite anime dub studio and favorite series that was dubbed.
So like I remember, even commenting on the Bang Zoo now. Bang Zoom is pretty good. They have a lot of spirit in their performances, which kind of reminds me of probably what my actual answer will be. But I remember for a while when Funimation first started doing stuff, everybody saw them as the best just because they corrected two problems that Ocean, who was getting historically most of the dubs, like they were the ones that were like aggressively getting a lot, had issues with. And Ocean had issues, with pronouncing Japanese words. Like their directors just could not get people to say the words properly. And B, with consistency with their cast. Like they would get people for a season or something like that, and then they might lose an actor, so they had to replace the actor for a character. And this happened a lot with older Ocean dubs. But honestly, people forget around the time that Funimation started doing that and becoming more competitive, Ocean also grew in marketplace for a while, and they were able to do a lot of the same stuff. Like they got better directors, they were more consistent with their cast members, and they just kind of like fell aside because of Funimation's domination. So I'd actually have to say Ocean Studios is probably my favorite dubbing studio.
Yeah,
and has probably some of my favorite actors.
It's kind of funny you were talking about how sometimes production was slowed down or stopped because for whatever reason you'd have actors changing over. That reminds me of the Maison Ikoku dub.
Yeah,
because it almost everybody, with the exception of the two main characters, was replaced. It's like they basically dubbed the first half of the season, went on a long hiatus, and when they started doing the second half of the series, it's like they had, with maybe the exception of the two main characters, they had to basically replace everybody.
Yeah, and that was a Rumiko Takahashi story, which Ocean basically had the exclusive rights to the dubs of like all of the Takahashi like anime that came through, all the way through Inuyasha. And that's what a lot of people forget, is like they'll compare it, like Ranma had a lot of changes. Even the early Dragon Ball Z dub that Ocean did had like multiple Gokus throughout the entire series. I think they had like 2 or 3.
Right.
So they were constantly changing people. By the time Inuyasha comes around, they pretty much had a consistent cast throughout the run of Inuyasha. Like they had already fixed those problems, but people were just paying more attention to Funimation by that time.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see.
So I would probably pick Inuyasha as my favorite dub.
All right, Inuyasha, your favorite dub series, and then
because I think that's when Ocean was at their strongest.
Yeah, okay. And then Ocean Studios is your favorite studio.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Rick?
Well, I don't really know any of the dubbing studios, so I can't really pick a favorite of mine. Although Goodnight Spoon somehow thinks I would like EDM. I'm not sure who they are. But
in Edmonton, but Edmonton doesn't have, let's see. Ocean is based out of Vancouver, and then a subsidiary there's Blue Water is based out of Calgary.
I thought he was just making a broad statement saying that Rick likes electric dance music.
Oh, okay, maybe I was thinking of something else, but
that's the only thing I know that EDM stands for.
So Yeah, I've watched a lot of animes over the years, not realizing it. Especially back in
That's
the
kind of how I
80s.
got started. I one day I was watching Dot X Shine one day and didn't realize. Oh, that's an actually
I
no.
love Dot Hack.
Yeah.
That's one
Yeah,
of my favorite series.
but what I mean is more like Robotech, Astro Boy,
Yeah.
Battle of the
Speed
Planet.
Racer.
Same reaction.
Again, I never even really watched Speed Racer, but I didn't even realize that was an anime. I know of it, but a
I actually
lot
get
back
really
when
upset
they're
with Speed Racer because its Japanese name is just so much better because of puns that I guess Americans wouldn't get, which is Mach Go 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 Go, right? Mach Go Go Go, which is 3 different goes, because Speed's name is Go, Go is 5, and Go also means to go.
yeah. But as I was saying, so I've watched a lot of animes over the years. I've been getting a little bit more into it lately. Of course, my most recent thing that I like the most has been My Hero Academia. So I'm probably gonna have to go with that. It's probably my favorite dub.
Yeah. So all right. So for me, my favorite studio, I mean they're all pretty good, but I would say I probably like, I guess the one I like the most, believe it or not, is probably Blue Water. A lot of their stuff just feels very natural to me. I mean, I'm particularly a big fan of like Caroline Day, who of course does a lot of the lead female characters in a lot of the series they do, including um, like Flame of Recca, My Hime. She was My Tohika in the My Hime franchise. My Hime, My Otome, and all that. Um, I'd say my favorite dub series is Yu Yu Hakusho. I like. Now, granted, the only thing I did not like about the dub is that they did use the R word. You know, um, R word that rhymes with bard. You know, guys should know what I mean.
You know
I
what's
But
do.
funny is that's actually one of the things, not that word specifically, but one of the things that the creator of Yu Yu Hakusho actually prefers about the dub over the original Japanese. That will and the dub pretty much just followed the adaptation of the translation of the manga, which did a lot of the same stuff, and that the English version allowed Yusuke to be the smack talker that the
mhm,
Japanese language doesn't really allow him to be.
hmm, yeah. Well, yeah, and I like the way Justin voiced him and stuff like that. But that's my favorite. So anyway, so now that we got all that answered, let's see what else people are
I
after.
also think that my answer mostly hinges on the fact that Richard Ian Cox is my favorite voice actor. That probably has a lot to do with it too.
Yeah, Richard Ian Cox, of course, did Inuyasha.
He also
And
voiced
in
Ranma for
Inuyasha,
like the
he did the
later
lead
half of the
title
series
character
too.
there. He was Quicksilver in X Men Evolution. I think he was also the lead character in Troubled Chocolate. He was I don't remember the character's name, but he was the lead character in Troubled Chocolate
He
among
also
others.
played Hallelujah Hapson in Gundam 00.
All right, so anyways, let's continue on here. How do you watch Sentai animes? I go to a particular site. I'm not going to mention which site, um, but I do go to particular site to watch all my animes. Um, say so. Um,
That
did,
question's probably
did
directed at
before
you.
I move on? Did you guys want to answer that or no?
My answer
Well,
is
I
probably
would
going to
have
be the
no.
same as yours.
What was that?
He goes to certain sites. He's not going
Yeah,
to
my
mention
answer
them.
is probably going to be the same as your answer.
And I don't usually. Well, I probably do too. Or although I don't really watch Sentai animes. I don't think, anyways.
You don't watch hentai anime? Well, hentai anime is
Well,
We said
hentai.
Sentai,
sentai. Okay,
like Sentai Filmworks.
yeah.
Yeah, well, Sentai. I was thinking like Power Rangers, but
There are a few things that fall in that category, but there's an actual company called Sentai Filmworks.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sentai Filmworks, which is based out of Houston, they essentially took over for ADV Films. You know, the only one in recent years that maybe the only handful that kind of got mainstream notice. The most recent being Food Wars on Toonami. So,
Yeah, so I don't know any about this stuff, so
yeah.
I'm lost.
Let's see. What's your favorite music? All of you. Are you saying music in general or music? Okay, look. If you guys
I think he's asking. I think he's asking all of us what our
you need to
favorite
be a
music
little more
is.
specific. So we
Well,
know how to answer.
mine's
go ahead.
Christian rock. My favorite music is Christian rock.
Yeah.
Skillet
I
or
like
Petra.
I like all kinds of music. I like I like I actually there's an online station called Otaku no Radio that actually has and old kind of older some Japanese J-pop, J-rock, and some older anime openings and all that. So
And that's what Good Night Sweet was probably answering for me.
Exclusively as a dubstep? I do not. There's a few dubstep that I don't know. My tastes are eclectic. They're all over the place. I listen. There's people who say I listen to all kinds of music. I actually do listen to all kinds of music. Some of the stuff I listen to would probably make certain some people squirm if they listen to it. But the peak of what I like, my musical taste can probably be defined by the 2000 Digimon the movie soundtrack.
Okay, so Goodnight Spoon's asking, did you watch Magic the Noah?
No, I did not. And I have no plans.
I don't know of it.
You talked about it on my show in the chat, the last one.
And then Goodnight Spoon's asking you, Metal exclusively listens to dubstep. Whatever.
Dubstep. It was supposed to be dubstep, probably, unless there is a genre called dubstep that I don't know about. I wouldn't be surprised. There's so many subgenres and stuff out there that you can kind of throw any syllable together, and you'll probably find a genre of music. If there is one, I'd be happy to hear some recommendations. Like I said, I do listen to kind of everything.
And then Dead Sea Pirates asking Metal, what is the Epic of Gilgamesh myth?
It's a song that takes about 6 hours to recite. If you do it properly, you need kind of a classical string instrument that was common in Sumer during that period of time to play it properly, but you can use pretty much any lute or lyre if you know the notation to go with it. And it is partially a creation myth at the very beginning that speeds up forward to the reign of a demigod tyrant named Gilgamesh and his search for immortality, that he ultimately learns that instead of searching for living forever, he should have just used the most of the time that he had alive, which leads him to be less of a tyrant and a good leader by the end of his life.
All right, and then before we continue, I just want to give a friendly reminder to everybody, if you haven't already, if you guys can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best of our ability, as we're doing now, going through all these chats and trying to answer everybody's questions. So I hope and these are nice little talking points too. So I do appreciate you guys' questions and giving us something to talk about. We don't always have to go over articles. If we can get conversations like this going, that's fine too. That'd be perfect, because then you get a little more.
Yeah. I guess the other answer to the Epic of Gilgamesh myth is it is the oldest written story that we have. Doesn't mean it's the oldest story. Most things that before that were passed on orally, as far as we could tell, or if there was something that was encoded before that, it was lost to the passage of time. But it's the oldest document that we still have access to, a carved version of it.
All right, let's see. Rick likes EDM. I don't know exactly what that means, but Seattle dub actors. Oh wait, I found one. How? Okay, well, there is no, as far as I know, there's no studio out of Seattle. The closest dub studio to Seattle would probably be Vancouver.
Yeah,
It,
but there
oh,
are
Yeah,
actors who live in Seattle that would probably go work at the Vancouver studio.
or LA or wherever, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, I mean,
well, actually, with the way things nowadays
you
are,
can work
it doesn't
anywhere,
necessarily
honestly.
matter anymore because from what I understand, a lot of these voice actors have set up little mini studios in their own home to where
Oh
they
yeah,
just
that's
record
more
their
common.
lines and then just I mean, which I think kind of cheapens the whole experience because I kind of liked it. You guys have probably heard me talk a little bit about the whole idea of the 6 dub capitals before. You
I
know,
understand that, and I'm going to completely disagree with you on cheapening the experience. But I'm going to tell you this from the perspective of somebody who does voice acting and likes opportunities. It's great that I can just create a studio in my closet and just send people voice recordings
yeah. I
anywhere.
I just like the idea of the ensemble, like okay, so Dallas had, Dallas Divinity, they had an ensemble group. Um, Houston with ADV, and now Sentai has their own little ensemble group. New York has their ensemble. Those little ensemble groups, and then competing with each other. I think that's great.
I would because I only like ensemble groups if you actually treat them like an acting troupe, and if there were more cases, like say how Dragon Ball Super had more than one dub of it, if there's more cases where multiple studios got access to their own dub, then I would like ensemble groups. But the fact that like they're competing for like proprietary access to a dub and there's only the one, I really don't care about ensemble groups.
All right, so let's see. So we got um, Pidodelphio. Um, how can people live in Southern California with the extreme heat and wildfires? Well, I live in Southern California. I've lived here my whole life. You just deal with it. It's
Yeah,
it's not. You just do the best you can. As with anything in life, with any obstacle or anything like that, you just live with it. Just deal with it the best you can. That's all you can do.
yeah, and
Um,
probably for you, you don't. The wildfires probably don't affect you that much. The
yeah,
extreme
I'm in
heat,
an area where I'm not near the areas where there are a lot of wildfires. I'm more inland, inland and more of a suburban area. So.
yeah, I was
I'm
gonna
not
say,
like
and
up in
also
the
the
mountain.
extreme
I'm not
heat,
like up in the mountains or up in the Central Valley or anything like that. In
and
Los
probably
Angeles or oh, go ahead, Rick. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, and probably for the extreme heat, just like anybody deals with heat, stay inside with air conditioning or fans.
Right. Is Los Angeles or San Diego better? Really can't answer
Uh,
that. Oh,
in what regard?
yeah. Well, I haven't been down to San Diego. I mean, in what regard? Because ideologically, I'd say San Diego might be slightly better, but again, I've never been down to San Diego. Where I live, I'm kind of on the border between LA and OC. Okay, LA County and Orange County. So I'm not too far from like Disneyland, or Knott's Berry Farm. You know,
Well, I think with his statement beforehand or question beforehand, he's probably more saying in regards to wildfires and extreme heat,
Oh, okay.
which is
I'm gonna give you the answers on this. San Diego is much more expensive than Los Angeles, so it is probably not better in that regard. But also because of that, there's a lot less like crime and homeless people in San Diego than Los Angeles. So it might be better in that regard. But if one of the reasons it's so expensive is that San Diego basically has tropical weather year round by comparison. It's almost like Hawaii weather with the cost of having extreme winds all the time, stuff that would like knock tree branches loose. My cousin lived in San Diego for quite a while. So it's got its trade offs. It just depends what you care about.
yeah. San Diego is also closer to the equator than
Yeah, that's why
uh,
it has that like tropical, subtropical weather like year round.
yeah. All right, so let's see more of what people say. So, an emo that I don't recognize there from.
That's a facepalm.
Okay. Just assume metal is right about 97% of the time, and interpreting my messages.
Of course, that was us talking about the EDM and what you meant by that. So I guess metal was right for the music, the electric dance
You
music.
stop Mike from self snitching. Country
Oh,
music.
that was the hentai comment.
Yeah. Well, I thought he said hentai, and I can understand why you wouldn't want to watch hentai, but being a Christian and all that. But and just because I know something doesn't necessarily mean I'd be self snitching or something like that. Okay.
Oh,
Anyway,
just him
Also,
trolling.
what do you have against country music? Okay, there's a lot of good country music, especially the further back you. You don't like Johnny Cash? Johnny Cash is great.
I
how
like
the
country
hell?
music,
Okay,
especially
so
older country.
Goodnight Spoon is asking, how the hell did autocorrect invent the word dubstub? I thought it pulls from dictionaries and things you've typed before. It's not even in my list now.
I don't know, but I think now I'm going to invent a subgenre of music called dubstub.
And what will dubstep be?
I haven't decided yet. I'm gonna experiment and kind of like land on it, you know.
Let's see now. Let's see. Pit of Delphio asks, is Caitlin Glass a bad VA? I don't think so. Metal? Do you think Caitlin
Um,
Glass is...
no, but even like when I have problems with anybody's individual like works that they've done, most of the time it's the director's fault, right? I mean, there's some actors who just aren't that good, and you wonder how they keep getting roles. But I think more often than not, it's like they just had bad like vocal coaching and directing when they were in the studio.
Well, Caitlin's also done some voice directing work herself too, and of course, for those who may not know, Caitlin, of course, let's see, I'm trying to remember some of the roles she played. Let's see, I know she was,
Most recently, she's been voicing Cammy in Street Fighter.
I mean, yeah, but I also know she was in Full Metal Alchemist. She was Winry Rockbell, I believe, in she was Winry
In Brotherhood.
Rockbell in what was that?
In Brotherhood.
In Full Metal Alchemist and Full Metal
Yeah.
Alchemist Brotherhood. Um,
Which I liked Winry. I thought Winry was a fine voice.
yeah. So I can't think of anything else she's done off the top of my head at the moment, but
Well, she's in Spy Family. She voices Damien Desmond,
okay.
the rich kid that Anya has to like kiss up to and become friends with for their plan to work.
So is it Okatron that's doing the dub for Spy Family?
I guess I don't know. I've never looked. It sounds like it would be though if she's in it. Or
Well,
of course, it
actually,
could be independent contract.
that shouldn't be completely true because I know Caitlin actually has moved out to LA here, so it's possible it could be the LA crew as well. But let's see now. I'm not a fan of her works. All right, well, sorry to
That's
hear
fine.
that. Modern country music. Tonight soon.
When does modern country music start? Because I haven't been listening to country music in a bit, like within like the last decade or so. But stuff from the aughts, there were some things that I still liked, like Old Red or Old Red by Blake Shelton. I was just re-listening to that song earlier today.
Shania Twain wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
I liked Shania Twain when I was younger.
I don't
The
listen,
older I get, the less I like Shania Twain.
Yeah. Like I don't listen to a whole lot of country music myself. I guess I'd be more into the more classic stuff than anything else. But one of the more recent songs that I kind of liked was a Jason Aldean song. I'm sure you guys might. I'm sure Metal, you might have heard this one. Try that in a small town. Make it on your own. Did you hear about that one?
Yeah,
About
Yeah,
some of the
backlash.
backlash that song got.
But I used to like Tim McGraw used to have some good music too. Like it depends like where do you start drawing the line at modern country music, right?
Yeah. And then classic country music. So
Okay.
let's see. We're at an hour.
I really like Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson is some good stuff too. But his stuff also borderlines on whether it was country or if it was just at his time a modern version of folk.
Yeah. Down in the West Texas town of El Paso, I fell in love with a Mexican girl. Oh, Marty Robbins.
Yeah.
I was thinking that would be more Roy Rogers.
Yeah. Let's see. So, and apparently, I guess we've answered everybody's questions that they want answered. So,
Yeah, at the moment. So, do you have any smaller articles that are probably going to only take maybe half an hour?
no, not really. I think even if we go a little beyond, I get because the two articles I think because I think it would be nice to hear Metal's take on some of this because again the two articles I did have are kind of follow-ups to some of the other articles you and I've been looking at recently with the AI, all the controversy over the AI translations and all that, and some of the outspokenness of Katrina Leona Dakis. So I think we'll do those two articles because I want to hear Metal. Metal, have you been hearing a lot about that a bit about Shogakukan recently coming out saying they're going to do more AI translations for their in fact they even coming up with an app for that. In fact, had you heard about some of that?
I've heard about it. Yes.
Yeah, we've been covering it on here too, and I know there are Dark's been covering it as well. So, anyways, I think we'll get started on these two articles here. Let me just see which one is which. Okay. All right, we'll start with that one then. So let me pull that up.
Good night, Spoon. Saying any thoughts on EWU?
Any thoughts on what's EWU?
Any thoughts on what EWU is, Metal? That's what we're supposed to take care of.
I'm actually thinking about that.
English Western University?
Yeah, well, most things that are EWU are universities. That's what I'm trying to.
Well, I mean, if he's talking about a university, it's Eastern Eastern. There is a Eastern Washington University up. It's part of the Big Sky Conference.
But I don't know. Would he randomly be thinking about that?
But you said earlier that Metal to believe.
Well, I wasn't saying it. Well, that's why I'm already saying it probably isn't a university.
Yeah.
But he's like randomly talking about the European Wrestling Union, which also doesn't sound like something Goodnight Spoon would probably be talking about.
How do you spell 60% of it and renounce 60% of it?
I don't know, but that equals 120%.
All right. Well, anyways, let's get into this. And all right, so it's kind of again some more follow up to some stories that Rick and I have been covering. Of course, with this, I figured now that we have you here as well, explore with us YouTube channel. Okay, whatever.
Not familiar with it.
Me neither.
All right, so English localizers furious over Japanese publisher Shogakukan's decision to use AI translation for light novels. They quote, they don't care about the works they're ruining. The only problem is part of the reason for this, and this has been talked about a lot, is part of the reason why I think Japanese studios are finally finding out that Western localizers are messing around with their works and the localizations and putting their own little twist on things, and that's what's causing this in part,
Yeah,
along with cost cutting, of course.
well, the problem is that they're bragging about it on social media. So how are they? You're
Well,
the
that's
only
going to be
one.
the next. That's actually going to be the next story, Rick. That's going to be the next story after this one. So, that's the next story. That's going to be the next story after this one.
Okay.
So, anyways, article by Nerdigans published back on August the 5th. So, like almost a week, last Monday. So.
Well, I more meant it's the about them bragging about it on social media is just the fact that this is how a lot of them are finding out that they're doing this. You know,
yeah,
you're expecting them not to find out about it when you brag about it on social media.
well, we'll get to that in a moment. So, a large number of English language localizers are unhappy with Japanese publisher Shogakukan's decision to use AI translation technology to localize a number of their light novel offerings for international readers. Set to launch in North America and Canada sometime near the end of 2024, Shogakukan's newly announced light novel app, Novellas, in quotes there, will offer users access to the publisher's wide library of light novel offerings, including Too Many Losing Heroines, Shio Tayo no Sato-san ga Ore ni Dake Amai, and Frieren Beyond Journey's End, prequel novel, Frieren the Novel, Prelude. According to the publisher, Novellas will see more than 400 titles added to the library over the next 2 years. And in order to meet this ambitious quota, Shogakukan has decided to use the Mantra AI translation engine to help localize their books. Again, some of the companies that are deciding to go the AI route are using this Mantra engine. So, see, developed by Japanese tech startup Mantra Company for use on manga and webtoons rather than just providing a literal translation of words like Google Translate or DeepL, the company's eponymous engine takes story, dialogue, and panel context into account to produce more accurate localizations. All right, so it's not just a strict translation. Okay. And then here's kind of, the process by which they're talking about here. From there, the localization is passed off to human editors within Mantra Company for a final review before ultimately being passed off to the source materials publisher. Which again has been talked a lot about, and which a lot of companies are going to use these engines and have human editors. And again, part of this is because I think it's finally getting back to some of these publishers and creators what the Western localizers are doing to their work. And because a lot of the fans who are reading it are sending letters back to the creators and stuff saying, "Hey, what's this? Is this really what you?" And a lot of these a lot of the manga localizers are doing a lot of the same thing that the anime localizers are doing. They're putting their own 2 cents, their political ideologies into the context and totally changing the story, in that.
Yeah, well, and it's just also like I said earlier, the fact that these people that are changing this stuff is bragging about it on social media, that the people that are doing it originally can read and find out that they're doing this. So it's like, okay, I don't want this done to it. Screw you. You're no longer doing translating my stuff.
Yeah. Metal, do you have anything to say on what we've talked about thus far with this article, or what we've done about?
So far, no. I mean, ultimately, I'm pro localization. Like, I'm really pro localization, just not these people who have been localizing.
Yeah.
I think when localization is done right, it captures the spirit of the work, but also retains the spirit more than just a dry translation does, because there's a lot of stuff that gets lost in translation if you don't have
Yeah.
somebody who can culturally translate things. And a lot of times, like, you don't even have to make it something that's locally cultural, but there might be a idiom or metaphor that gets lost that needs to be
Right.
reevaluated.
And I saw, and I
Yeah.
know they talked about that when I would look at some of the extras on the Yu Yu Hakusho DVDs that I have.
Yeah.
They do talk about that. And I know that Vera Dark pretty much has the same. In other words, she's even said she'd prefer that humans do the work, but when humans like Katrina Leonidakis
Yeah.
do what they do, then that's going to cause some problems. So,
Because a lot of people don't even understand how the localization process works, right? Because a lot of times there actually is already a dry translation that exists. It's somebody who speaks English at the original studio will make a dry translation, but like English isn't their first language, right? They learn to speak English in Japan. So like they don't understand how to convert idioms or anything like that, and sometimes the grammar's not the best. So they hand the dry translation off to the localizer, and a lot of times the localizer can't even speak Japanese. Like their job is just to take this already translated work and then localize it into a way that people can understand it. Which, to me, the older ones used to be able to read and speak Japanese. Like the further back you go, but a lot of the modern ones don't. And I feel like, how are you going to capture the spirit properly if you can only go off of the already translated thing, and you can't look at the source material yourself? I always thought that was a weird thing with localization that started kind of in the aughts that way. And
can you repeat that last point there one more time? I didn't.
oh yeah, so like this part kind of started in the aughts, but like a lot of times the localizer
What
can't
part
even
started
read,
in the aughts?
where the localizer can't even read or speak Japanese themselves, right?
Oh.
They literally just get a translation from the studio, and then they have to try to convert it into like local idioms and culture and stuff like that. I think it's probably also in the aughts is when you see an explosion of the popularity of like anime and a lot of these more obscure Japanese games. So more localization was needed. You had to expand the studios for dubbing and subbing and everything like that. So that's probably why this started happening as well. More people got into the industry. It was less niche. And I just find it weird that you would let people who don't have a general understanding of Japanese localize it even if they have a translation. Because if I were to localize something, even if you gave me a translation already, I would want to see what it was like in the source so I could capture the spirit of it better.
Right. All right. So let
I
me get
was going to say the other thing I like about what they say here, how it's done, is that after the anime or after the AI does it, there's an editor to make sure it's correct, and then they bring it back to the original person. Is this the spirit of what you were trying to capture? I guess is what they're making sure.
Well, so
you
know? the original person a lot of times just stop getting involved in that way, because the reason they went to a localizer is because they just couldn't tell in the first place, right? They are their cultural literacy of the language that they're trying to translate into and the local culture is basically zero. That's why they would go to somebody else, right? There's very few exceptions. I think using the Yu Yu Hakusho creator as an example is an exception to that, because he understands enough English and he can tell that Yusuke is now a good smack talker. But often that's not the case. Like they nod their heads and thumbs up, like yeah, good job.
But I think when they start hearing from their fans that look, this was changed, like I know, like some of the stuff like what Jimmy Markey did with in the anime of Dragon Maid, right? Got a lot of, when it gets back to the original creators, what they're doing with that, that I'm sure they're like realizing, okay, maybe we do need to get a little bit more involved.
But a lot of the creators, like, it has to be explained to them. Well, that's why it takes so long, right? Like, even the fans, they have to actually explain what was wrong with the localization, because otherwise a lot of the creators just don't know. Like, they don't understand that their work was ruined until somebody points out exactly how it was ruined.
Yeah, because with what a lot of these localizers do is they insert their own, ideology. They insert their own, their own
But
ideology.
that's what I'm
their
getting,
own,
though, is like a lot of people don't know that they're inserting their own ideology, because as part of localization, they expect a certain level of change culturally, right? Like, there's some good examples of where things go right. One of the games that I play very regularly, the Honkai Star Rail, is a Chinese game that's got English localization, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of their missions, a lot of their achievements and stuff are all jokes and references that make sense in Chinese. So what they let the people do that localize it in both the Japanese and the English localization is they let them come up with jokes and references that are the same but local, right? Like if there was a famous bike rider, like bicyclist in China that they had a reference to, they would let you make a reference to like a famous cyclist in the U.S. They expect a certain level of cultural change. But when,
I know that's one of the things they talked about as well in Yu Yu Hakusho too.
Yeah, but if you aren't caught up with like the modern culture in another country, you don't realize that what's being injected is somebody's personal ideology. You just think that's part of the culture there, unless somebody points it out to you specifically. And that's why it took so long. Fans had to point out specifically what the problem was.
Yeah. So, anyways, let me get back to the article here. All right. So, in parentheses here, it says, interestingly, despite full documentation regarding Mantra Company's localization process being easily accessible, popular anime and manga news accounts, such as Manga Alerts, omitted the startup company's human element, thus resulting in Western critics near universally misinterpreting this announcement as confirmation that the publisher would only be using machine translation for their app. So, and I don't know, you kind of wonder though if maybe that's just are they misinterpreting it, or are they doing that on purpose just to try to save their own what?
Yeah, it could go either way because these people aren't exactly bright either.
So, and they have I guess it's Richardson Hanjaja, AI translation startup Mantra is in the headlines again, so I should note that they appear to have editor intervention once translations are produced. All right. So, to this end, instead of responding to the impending AI threat by improving the quality of their localizations, a large number of Western-based Japanese to English localizers, many of whom have themselves boasted about having deliberately, and this is what we were talking about before, Rick, and inserted their own politics and memes into the works they were responsible for. Instead, focus their energy on raging against Shogakukan's decision to replace them with AI. Yeah, and I think what, as Metal, you were saying earlier, what has to be explained to them is how it's being ruined and how it's changing the very meaning of what the author originally intended. Right?
It's not keeping it, right? Like, there's some bad localizations that don't really change the meaning, and it's kind of funny, but you still wish it was better. Like, say, 4Kids doing Pokemon, and there's, like, an example where Brock made, like, rice balls for somebody, right? And instead of using the name of the rice ball, right, or instead of just calling them a rice cake, which is something that we have here, they refer to them as jelly donuts. And you're like, those are 100% not jelly donuts. No Japanese person would ever refer to that as a donut, right? But that's just kind of funny. It doesn't really change the intent of what's going on there. It's not as malicious and invasive as the stuff that's going on now.
Well, I know that one of the more recent things that's been getting talked about too is, and now in my watching of One Piece, I'm now in the Wano arc. So the whole thing surrounding Yamato, right?
Yeah.
Where Yamato was born a girl, but she identifies as a guy, but not just a guy like what at least what the people at Funimation or the Dallas group want to make
well,
a thing.
She
It's more like
identify as a male or like the opposite sex. She identifies as a specific dude.
Yeah, a specific individual.
Oden.
Yeah, Kozaki Odin. So,
and it's more of like when somebody has such a level of hero worship that they want to be that hero. That's more of what's going on with Yamato.
Yeah,
Or
it's not what they're trying to sell. It's not what the Westerners want to try to sell.
It's like somebody who thinks they're Napoleon or Jesus.
Yeah. To a degree.
Maybe not quite as bad or whatever. I'm not sure because I haven't watched
the Napoleon one might be closer to that. But it's like or like Alexander the Great, right? Like you thought Alexander was such a great guy. Like I want to live my life as if I was Alexander the Great.
Metal, can you explain to me the exchanges you just recently had with Goodnight Spoon here? Because I guess he's now trying to bring me into it, saying so. What's going on with?
I'm trying to figure out which one you're talking about. We were talking about a true crime thing because he was explaining me to an acronym that I didn't get, that none of us really got, and then we were just having a conversation on the side. And then he was asking how Review Bruh hasn't aged in 7 years, and I said because he's found the secret. And then he quoted Review Bruh, so that one immediately after my thing was not like a comment towards the show or anything. It's a meme or a common quote from him is my disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. It was from one of his older videos after he tried one of the things he reviewed. Review Bruh tends to review fast foods and like grocery store freezer aisle stuff, like cheap food, but he does like these high quality professional reviews on it where he like wears a suit and everything and is very in depth about the review. It's a great channel. I highly recommend.
I think
but it doesn't need my recommendation because it's
and then Goodnight Spoon saying maybe you should stop whitewashing Japanese jabs. And then Goodnight Spoon saying here that joke is going to be irrelevant by the time Mike reads it. You should convince him I'm serious. Isn't that what the talented Mr. Ripley was about?
Was it?
Well, I haven't even been reading the chats. I've been focusing more on the article, Goodnight Spoon, and I wasn't necessarily reading the chats because I just figured you and Metal were kind of having your own conversation on the matters there. So that's why I wasn't really paying too much attention there.
Because I've never seen the talented
Don't
Mr.
pay
Ripley
attention to that.
So I mean,
he's just teasing in the fact that you haven't read the chat in a while.
Yeah.
Ignore it.
Well,
or wow. Okay, say fine. Yeah, I haven't read the chat in a while.
The article. So, and I'm trying, considering that we're already at hour 38 now, I'm trying to get through, the articles as quickly as I can. So, because I think I want to do both of them because I think they both are going to have, some very interesting stuff to talk about there. But anyways, let's see. Instead of focus their energy on raging against Shogakukan's decision to replace them with AI. Quote, when there are errors in the front and center marketing, I dread to think of what the bulk of it is going to turn out like, unquote. Infinite Dandrogram and Rance X Showdown localizer Andrew Hodgson proclaimed, quote, "This is what disrespect for the medium and your audience looks like," unquote. Would you agree with that? Do you agree with that statement, Metal?
Oh yeah. Which it is always great hearing like somebody in the industry, like another localizer, actually saying that about the other localizers. Because obviously not all localizers agree with what's going on currently, and there's still some stuff that's being localized great, right? It's just the really bad stuff is what sticks out because they're doing a bad enough job that is making people want to replace them with machines.
So do you think that what Andrew is saying here was more in response to people's because the way the article is saying it, it almost sounds like he's criticizing.
Oh, the AI? I mean, he could be, and I might be reading it wrong. But I do know that there are a lot of localizers in the industry that aren't agreeing with this. He may not be one of them. But there are a lot that are like yelling at the other localizers, like, "Hey, you're the ones that are making us lose the jobs because you can't do your job right."
Yeah. So despite multiple cases where I think that should be localizers, there's a typo right there, have openly boasted about deliberately and in some cases weaponizing mistranslations. We've seen that quite a bit. Elden Ring, The Road to Erdtree, letterer Greg Deng went as far as to claim, quote, this is kind of a minor thing relative to the problem that MTL is inaccurate, but this kind of in small quote service is also just strictly worse than piracy, even if you only consider the business side of things. The idea is still flawed. So
Now that I think is just completely ridiculous. If the company who owns the license decides to use a machine translation, at no point could the service ever be worse than piracy, right? It's not like people are stealing from you; they're deciding not to give you the opportunity in the first place.
Right. Yeah. So.
And I think what they don't understand too is like a lot of times the pirates are doing a better job translating than these local or these modern localizers are too. Especially, there's something I hate about subs in the modern day, and I love subs, but like the official subs suck because like the official subs don't have like translator notes and stuff on there. And one of the things I love about like the fan subs is yes, they will choose not to localize a type of food or whatever because there really is no equivalent to it, right? It's not like okonomiyaki where you can kind of call it pizza because people in Japan will kind of like say it's pizza at the same time too, even though nobody who eats pizza would call that pizza. But there's like some things that just don't have a local equivalence. So they'll just write the name in Japanese and they'll give like a translator's note that you could like pause it and read the note and it'll explain to you what the thing is. Modern subs don't do that, like at all. And I find it crazy. Or also, like, a lot of modern subs, when they localize, don't translate the signs. While if you like watch a fan sub, they'll have like English text over the Japanese signs so you know what it's supposed to be. Wait, how do I know about okonomiyaki? I love okonomiyaki. It's one of my favorite Japanese foods. But also, if you've ever read Ranma or watched it, one of the his suitors is a okonomiyaki chef. That's what she specializes in. But yeah, no, it's like they don't translate the signs in modern subs. I was watching an official sub on Netflix, and all the signs were still in Japanese with no like hover text or anything. It's like I could be watching this on a pirate site, and I would know exactly what those signs meant.
All right. So, anyways, continuing on with the article here. Quote, just this June, Shogakukan announced that it was one of the fund providers for a Tokyo-based AI startup, Mantra, which is focused on AI translations of JP or Japanese manga, unquote, stated last gender localizer Mishima Kitami. Now, Now here's the thing I noticed too. If you look down a little bit there, got some kanji there. I don't know, it's kanji or katakuro. You got the they them, I guess, pronoun thing, and then support Black trans liberation. Oh brother.
Yeah, this is definitely somebody I wouldn't want working at my company. Like they have so many red flags sitting there just at the start.
Yeah. Quote, these companies know manga make money, unquote. Quote, greed drives them for more profits in their pockets, not quality. Again,
That's the same with most people.
part of the reason they are going with AI too, to be fair, is a cost cutting measure. But they probably wouldn't be. But as we've been noting here, they probably wouldn't be even considering it if you were all correctly translating them in the first place, instead of inserting your own ideology into the stuff. So these companies know manga. Okay, so we already read that from her post. I guess there's another aspect of her. So, quote, it is fundamentally unfathomable to me that these corporations think it is acceptable to have stories written by humans to go through MTL, unquote. They added, quote, MTL, machine translation, I guess, that which cannot grasp the fine details of the words drafted through human endeavor. MTL of human art is a spit in our face. Well, the only thing is, it's not.
The problem is you guys don't grasp the fine quality of the thing. The AI is grasping it more than you.
Now, even Vera Dark in her coverage has acknowledged that yes, sometimes the machine might inadvertently maybe interpret something as something more than it is, or what have you. But at least that's fixable, because you have people talk. She talked about, well, codes can be manipulated, this and the next thing, but but the thing is that the one thing everybody seems to, and it was remarked on earlier in the article here, the whole idea that there are human editors who are scanning it over to make sure everything's right anyways, is happening. So
and hello 1067
and Beach. Gary hit them with the okay. All right. So, anyways, as we try to continue on here, issuing a call to arms, the gender inclusive advisor. Then you notice how they called her gender inclusive advisor. So it's like these translators seem to really be full of themselves, don't they? Metal Rick, did you hear what I just said?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
And I'll say ramen. Good night, spoon. I think he's talking about noodles.
Well, no, the answer to whether you call it ramen or soba depends on if you're eating ramen or soba. Those are two different types of noodles.
Well, I've had ramen, soba, and udon, and they are all slightly different. In terms, like, I think from what I understand, at least from my perspective, I think ramen is like the thinnest of the noodles.
Ramen actually originally comes from China, way, way, way back, but has only become a staple to Japan. In fact, China kind of lost it.
Yeah, soba is slightly thicker, and then udon is the thickest of the those three noodles. So,
in fact, ramen's such an old noodle that even Korea still has their own form of ramen that has a very, very similar name.
Yeah. So, quote, I am asking you all, the readers and audiences of English-speaking sphere, who are against AI and MTL, to drive this Shogakukan app down to the rock bottom and into the negatives. Yeah, that's going to happen. part of the reason why this app is even coming to be, because a lot of the same people that you're trying to appeal to are fed up with your translations.
Yeah.
Make them regret their decisions to disrespect human art. And you notice how she called that human art. She called translating somebody else's work human art. Again, the whole seed of conceit right there. Right?
Maybe I'm gonna be a little charitable. Given the previous comment, I think she's saying what's disrespecting the human art is even just running the original through the machine translation. I'm gonna be a little charitable there because that's what the previous comment said too.
Yeah. But is it what's more disrespectful? Purposely misrepresenting the person's work or putting it through a machine translation? That's like taking a photograph of somebody's, almost like taking the photograph of somebody, like somebody's painting or sculpture and passing it on that way.
So, Rick, ask that question again, and I want Metal to answer that if he can.
Oh, the first question, what's more disrespectful? Purposely misrepresenting somebody's work or, running it through a machine translation. Is that what you're talking about, that question?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, I could give you what my opinion of that is, but even being charitable wasn't based on my opinion. Personally, I think what they're doing is the most disrespectful thing. I don't even think running something through a machine translation is inherently disrespectful. I just don't think it is the best way of capturing something. You need somebody who understands the culture of where something came from and where it's going to be able to get the best comprehension of it. But from their perspective, the people calling this disrespectful, they would, I guess, oddly think that the machine translation one is the most disrespectful, but they're also insane. So,
yeah.
Again,
these people just think they're just so full of themselves.
Yeah, and like I was just saying, it's like taking a picture of a picture, or a sculpture, and sending it somebody to them that way. That's not disrespectful. Okay. You're showing people.
To no surprise, notorious localizer Katrina Leonidakis, and I know that Vera Dark has had quite a few things to say about this young lady, who is most recently and deliberately botched Sentai Filmworks' English localization of 2.5-Dimensional Seduction, also joined in on the conversation, asserting, quote, "Well, at least they were honest. They only care about cutting costs, not about getting readers good translations," unquote. Quote, "Do you think?" Well, I think if that was the case, okay, here's the problem with that statement, though. I think here's a problem with that statement. If that was really the case, that if Japanese publishers really like that, or like the way that Katrina's trying to paint them as an evil corporation, right? Then they would not be using human localizers in the first place, right?
Well, I mean, in the first place, sure, but strictly that's because machine translation isn't that old, like the stuff they're doing now. But they wouldn't be paying high dollar for it, right? They'd be spitting out the translation that comes from the studio, and then just be like, okay, whoever's putting the book together, just make it sound okay.
Right.
Or they might, just take the fans' translations and are doing it for free.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Somebody's already done it for free. Okay.
Quote, "Do you think the authors of the light novels would want their international fans reading garbled versions of prose they worked so hard on?" she asked. Quote unquote, "How did?" Well, no, I don't think no more than having to read somebody, a localizer's personal interpretation and ideological stance inserted into context that the original creator likely did not intend.
Well,
And
I'll go
sometimes
one
it's
step
not
further.
even.
Hold on, let metal
Yeah,
speak.
I was going
I'll
to.
go one step further on there. If you're asked, do you think they would want them reading this? Like, no, actually, if they had their way, I think they would prefer you actually just learn how to read Japanese so that you could get it in its original context.
Yeah, and I was
and
going to
not
say,
and not insert their own
Yeah.
ideology. You know,
yeah, it's not they're even mis doing their own interpretation. They're just rewriting the comic half the time.
right? That's what's been getting. That's what's leading to the drive towards the AI translations. You know,
Because like machine translation's gotten really good. I've actually been wondering this recently because they always bring up that like, oh, this is akin to piracy or worse than piracy, blah blah blah. What? How would they feel, or like how worse is this than if I were to just buy, say, the Japanese version of a manga or like one of their light novels, right? Like in Japanese, and then just held my phone over it and used the Google Translate like camera translation to just read it that way. Like I own it, I have the original source material. It's gonna just be a lame machine translation, but it's also gonna be good enough that I could make my way through the book like that. Like, I don't really see much of a difference here.
Yeah.
Hmm.
In
Yeah.
fact, from what we were reading the other day on this translation mantra, it's even going to take into concept stuff that's happening in the panel, the drawings and all that,
right.
to do some
And
interpretation
and
of
they
that.
kind of touched upon that earlier in this article too. Before I do get back to the article though, because I guess people are wanting some attention here, so I want to give it to them. DJ is saying, I have more Yurusei Yatsura questions. Metal is Sakura an early version model of Kagome?
I probably wouldn't say that. Especially because like Kagome is kind of almost like a self-insert for Rumiko in a way. I mean, but she's also basically the same character as Akane. Most of her female characters, if they're the lead, aside from Lum, who's she's even said is the polar opposite of her, but most of them are basically just Rumiko. I would say Sakura is more of like, if you're going to compare her to anything, Kikyo and Sakura are closer to the same character.
All right, and then of course, udon is a separate. Yeah, well, yeah. I'm talking about the noodles themselves. Good night, Spoon. Now, what is Mao manga and Nanaka Kiba? It's very unclear about her status.
Yeah, Mao is just that's the current manga that Rumiko Takahashi is working on. It's over 200 chapters in right now. I'm pretty far behind it. I'm trying to catch up. But Nanoka is just kind of like the Kagome of that story in a way, right? But the difference in this one is, well, I mean, I guess Kagome had some supernatural aspects to her too because she inherited the priestess stuff. But like Nanoka has like the demon curse on her as well, similar to Mao with the cat. So she actually has like demonic strength and powers that have been suppressed her entire life because the family she's been living with has been fake. Like they've been like yokai. It shouldn't be demons. It should be yokai, but they translate it to demon. That have been in disguise to suppress her. And Mao is kind of like a chain of mysteries unlocking a further deeper mystery with the cat demon. So I don't know. I'm excited to read more of it. I just haven't had the time.
All right, so let me just get through these, and then we'll get back to the article. I really want to get through both of these even though I know we're coming up on 2 hours already, but I really want to get through both of them because I want to hear Metal's point on the his input on the other article as well. So, stop taking AI jabs
Jobs.
or AI. Stop taking AI jobs, or maybe I said something else,
Or,
but amusing.
or imagine I said something else amusing.
Well, back to EWU. How did Kirby? Well, if you're asking how Kirby Morrow died, I think he might have committed suicide, actually, if that's what you were asking. But he apparently he had been suffering from some psychological issues in recent years. So, Mike, It is what exactly happened in the movie 9 with AI and machinery.
Okay. I don't know which movie. I haven't seen that movie.
Yeah, I don't
Have
know
you?
either. Anyways, let's get back to the article here. So let's see now. Don't get me wrong, in quotes there. The gushing over Magical Girls localizer emphasized, quote, like any tool, machine translation and AI have their uses, but you don't use a jackhammer to nail a planting to the wall or a painting to the
Hey,
wall. Yeah, MT and AI isn't smart or nuanced enough to craft translations that audiences want to read, parentheses, and pay for. Well, I think as Metal mentioned, and as I think even mentioned earlier, one, the technology is getting better, and also it's not exclusively just MT and AI because you do have human editors that will clean it up a bit as needed.
I'd also argue that these localizers aren't smart or nuanced enough to craft translations the audience want either.
yeah.
What was that? What was that, Metal? Say that again.
I said I would also argue that these localizers aren't smart or nuanced enough to craft translations that audience want to read either.
Yeah.
Which is why they're going to
Is it
machine
that they're not
translation.
smart enough, or is it that they're just deliberately trying to take another artist's work and pervert it to their own needs?
Well, given the fact that they're losing their jobs, I'm going to say there's not a difference there. Because it's pretty stupid to do something that's going to cost your own job.
Yeah. Let's see. Instead of sharing wisdom on 7C's English language localization process, I guess that's the company that Leonidakis works for. Leonidakis stated, quote, here's the thing about light novels. Because the original text is often available online, Shosetsuka, ni Naro, etc. Lots of, um, in smaller quotes, fan translation groups already publish machine translations for them for free online. So you're giving international fans what they already have, unquote. Yeah, I mean, I know that one of the things that Vera had pointed out was, yeah, they might want to even consider hiring some of these fan translators because they actually have more respect for the work than these people do. Quote, but these companies don't care about that, unquote, she continued. Quote, they don't care about the authors, their customers, or the works they're ruining with machine translation. And I don't agree with that. First off, I think because they are utilizing human editors to clean up whatever needs to be cleaned up. And I would actually argue that part of the reason they're going to machine translation is because you don't care about what the authors or customers want.
Yeah,
Right, Metal?
Metal was just saying that too, and I would agree.
Yeah. In the end, all they care about is money. And of course, that's the tried and true argument of the SJW. No, they're not responsible for it. It's those evil, greedy corporations or the evil, greedy companies. They don't want human workers. They want money, money, money.
Yeah. You see, the thing is, that's exactly it. They do want money, and they're losing money because you're translating everything wrong.
Yeah. Quote,
Because people
fortunately,
don't want to pick up the perverted copies.
yeah. Fortunately, the English manga localization scene is still dedicated to hiring human translators, editors, and letterers to produce high-quality local localizations, unquote, she concluded. Quote, and now we've got an award ceremony to recognize the humans that bring authors' work into English with love and respect.
Wow, you got an award ceremony. You're so special.
As noted above, Shogakukan's Novellas reader app is set to release sometime before the end of 2024. All right, so before I go on, real
Can I
quickly,
give you a gold star? Will that make you feel better? Sorry.
Before I go on to the next article, Any thoughts on
I was just saying, can I give you a
any
gold?
final thoughts on what we just read? Any final thoughts or any final thoughts on what we just read, or any more insight that you guys want to give?
I was just saying, can I give you a gold star? Will that make you feel better?
Oh, you mean to Katrina?
Yeah. She's like, we got an award ceremony now. That'll make us feel better. Good for you. I'll give you a gold star.
Well, I mean, you can very much tell from those comments. Those people are they're so full of themselves. They think a lot of times they actually think their translation is actually better than the original. In fact, I think actually we're going to this next article, I think, is going to be about the very thing, one of the things that was actually mentioned in that previous article about and somebody give me a private chat. Oh, okay. I see. That's why he didn't respond. Okay. Then I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait a moment because before I start reading this article, because I want Metal's take on this article as well. Actually, speaking of which, I'm gonna step away from the computer for a moment. Rick, if you want to talk to the chat a bit while I'm gone, and then hopefully by the time I get back, Metal will be back as well. So, anyway, I'll be right back.
Well, hello, everybody.
Oddly enough, I came back just as he said he'd be right back.
So, you probably said something about it in my chat on Tuesday, but what do you think of my haircut?
I don't think I said anything in your chat on Tuesday.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I'm just...
Yeah. It sure is a haircut. It's not that different from mine.
Yeah. I was wearing something gray one of the last times I was on here, and I'm like, I look a little bit like Metal with this on. Holy batter.
Listen, man, I like not having hair. Okay? Even if my hair was thicker than it is now, I'd probably still be shaving it just because it's so convenient not having to worry what's on top of my head.
Yeah. So were you surprised to see me suddenly have no hair?
I had no opinion.
You have no opinion of whether you were surprised or not?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, was it something you thought you would see anytime soon?
The thing is saying, like, I have no opinion is, like, I don't think it ever occurred to me to care.
Oh. Whether I cut my hair or not.
Yeah.
It was just like, I guess I was just like, most people wouldn't have expected me to cut my hair, and especially cut it all off. So it's like, what the?
Yeah, I mean, you have had pretty long hair for a while, but it's like, none of my concern.
Yeah.
All right. So, anyways, welcome back, Metal.
I think the only time that anybody's haircut is my concern is if I'm dating the chick.
True.
And then I better make sure I say the right thing. That's the only thing I'm concerned about.
Yeah. Well, it's not
about haircuts.
Well, I was just asking Metal whether he was shocked by my haircut. And he said he wasn't shocked or not shocked. He just didn't care.
Well, I'm gonna probably need to take all this off myself soon. So, all right.
I trim my hair somewhere between every to every other week. Man, I like keeping it short, extremely shaved. Like I don't even have a comb on it anymore. I just take the razor straight to my head and just like, okay, there'll be some fuzz in a day or two anyway.
All right. So, anyways, let's move on to this next. Because, like I said, I was waiting for you to come back, Metal, because obviously I want your input on this one.
We're
I
still
think
on the same subject, just on a different part of the same subject.
Well, yeah, this one, I think this article is specifically talking about what they were talking about. This might be specifically about Katrina and her. So, Western localizer proudly brags about butchering Sentai Filmworks' English localization of 2.5 Dimensional Seduction. Article by Nerdigans Inc. published last Monday. So these two were kind of like, these two articles kind of go together, obviously, just different, as you said, different aspects. So, despite the looming threat of being replaced with AI, emboldened Western localizers are not only continuing to deliberately botch Japanese media, but some, such as the localizer behind Sentai Filmworks' English localization of 2.5 Dimensional Seduction, are not afraid to openly boast about their quote-unquote masterpieces on social media. As previously covered, between turning protagonist Okumura from a, in small quotes, shy and socially unaware otaku, unsmall quote, into, in smaller quotes, a sleazy sexist jerk, to having a group of girls being jealous of another girl's rumored promiscuity instead of attacking her for it, to outright changing dialogue almost wantonly. Sentai Filmworks English subtitles for 2.5 Dimensional Seduction are, to say the least, an absolute disaster. So Katrina is also a subtitle localizer. And the localizer behind this mess, none other than the notorious, in smaller quotes, professional anime, manga, and video game localizer, Katrina Leonodakis. Yeah, I keep forgetting Leonodakis. I think that's Greek. I'm pronouncing it that way. But who revealed her involvement in localizing cosplay ecchi anime prior to its airing. So, 2.5 Dimensional Seduction is a cosplay ecchi anime. So, any thoughts thus far, Metal?
No.
All right, let's get through this. Unsurprisingly, the premiere of Leonodakis' work on 2.5 Dimensional Seduction soon drew a wave of outrage from audiences, their frustrations peaking due to being yet again denied a faithful translation of a Japanese work. However, rather than even taking a moment to acknowledge fans' concerns, Leonodakis has instead, like she did with My Life as Inukai-san's dog, which, and I read an article about that too, about where she botched that one too, and she again deliberately completely changed the meaning of the material to insert her own narrative.
See,
Come
the
out
thing
of
is,
Wait.
thing is-
I'm just laughing at the title. I've never heard of it. Because Inukai itself is a combination of the word dog and king. So is it My Life as the Dog King's Dog? Is that what the title is supposed to be?
I guess.
but I was going to say, can you really call it a botched job when it was on purpose?
Yeah, but well, okay, so I guess the plot, just real quickly for middle sake of My Life as a so it's about a guy who he has a crush on this girl, but is real shy, has trouble speaking up about his crush on this girl. So he somehow gets, I guess, I don't know if it's his soul, or he ends up becoming her dog. And
Yeah.
the whole anime,
No, I'm just going to have to look up the
his
name of
life
this.
as her dog.
Because sometimes the English names of things are so weird, and it's funny that like they left the word inukai like that. So I want to see what the Japanese name was.
Yeah. You gonna go look it up? I guess.
Yeah. I'm gonna go look that up right now. You can continue talking while I figure this out.
Okay. As he come out of the woodwork to brag about her latest masterpiece and weaponize it against fans. Said, in small quotes, masterpiece can be seen in the series' third episode, Lily Mary, during the scene when Okamura's childhood friend, Migrari Tachibana, agrees to cosplay as the fictional character Milela and proceeds to ask the otaku for his opinion on the character.
Okay, I found the name. Man, is the English name like a straight butcher of what the Japanese name is? It doesn't even make sense why they would call it that. The Japanese name is Inoshi Natara Suki Nahito ni Hirowatara Warareda, which means after I became a dog, I was picked up by the person I like.
Yeah, that's actually the plot of that's.
Yeah, it's one of those shows where like the books where the series name is literally the plot of the series, which there's a lot of those in Japanese.
Right. But if you think about it, my life as Inuka-san's dog is kind of, for English, that's kind of more of a catchy title.
It is. It's just like choosing.
And even though it's not the most accurate of translations, it still does speak to the to a certain degree, maybe not as well as another possible title would be, but it does still speak to the plot of the series. Right?
Yeah, I could just come up with better ways of saying that title in a shorter way.
Exactly.
Right? And I have a lot of problems with this, right? There's a lot of issues with how people decide to name things, where sometimes things even sound worse. Like Attack on Titan is a horrible translation of the name, because it doesn't make you. It makes you think like that place's name is Titan or something like that. And the actual translation should be something closer to like Titan Assault, which makes you think more, oh, the Titans are the one that are doing the attacking, right? And it's like, why did you name it that? I don't know. This is just a recurring problem I have with the translations of titles in Japanese media.
So getting back to this article and this specific, this 2.5 dimensional seduction here. Originally as seen in the manga 7th chapter, so which one's Liliel? In response to Tachibana's inquiry, so this is originally as seen in the manga. Okay, Okamura proceeds to essentially let his fandom get the best of him and gush about just how much he loves Miliela. Quote, "Of course I do," unquote, he explains, per a fan translation of the chapter provided by the Black Cat
Scantilations, right? So it's like scantilations is like a scantily clad or like a scantily translation. It's just that's what it means. Yeah.
Quote, Miliela's charm is completely based on her abusive actions towards enemies, and then how she treats all of them, in parentheses, like slaves. It sounds is that kind of, I know there's a particular word for a character like that. Is that a Sundari maybe, or Yandari?
No, that wouldn't be either of those, because like Tsun Dore, which is the first version of that. Dere has to do with like how someone loves somebody. Tsun is like like an onomatopoeia. It is a hard sound, right? Like beating a drum or something, right? So when you add tsun to dere, it means tough love, and it's usually somebody who is like rough on the person they like, and they're probably hiding their feelings. Yandere, on the other hand, is somebody who is like obsessively in love with somebody, almost to a fault, where they'll like probably kill someone over their obsession. So it wouldn't be either of those. I'm trying to remember the one who treats people. It's almost like a pet type situation where they treat them like slaves. There's like 7 main things that people attach the term dere to, and then there's a bunch of like sub ones as well.
Yeah. So even if she just looks like a cute devil type character, she's a real sadist who can make Ashford Sama tremble when they meet. She has an amazing erotic cuteness capable of tempting basically anyone. But even when she offers those kinds of lewd rewards, the only one able to resist her allure and remain pure with that very same Ashford Sama, in spite of her allure being just as unique as Liliel, she's also got a reason. She's one of the most popular idols. If you're not careful, you'll completely fall for her. No, that was, I guess, from the original manga. Taken aback and overwhelmed, Mikari, and this, I guess, still talking about the original, or at least how it was originally translated. Mikari further presses, quote, "I thought you said you wouldn't cheat on Lilial," unquote. To which Okamura clarifies in turn, quote, "Of course, Lilial's my waifu, but Miliella is my Imoto." Now, I have heard of an anime with Imoto in the title. I've recently watched it, kind of a cutesy anime. But okay, so what? Imoto, as I understand it, is little sister type.
Yeah, well, sort of, right? It's somebody you treat like a younger sister.
Right.
Yeah.
Still
That's the type of relationship you have.
Yeah. Still unsatisfied with his answer, a frustrated Mikari pushes back, quote, that's not good enough. But so now I guess we're gonna get Katrina's version here. I guess is what the but in so you remember the context of what that was being presented as, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But in Leonidaki's localization, Okamura's explanation is not only far shorter in length, but also far more crude in its content. In effect, replacing the joke of, quote, "it's generally funny because he's so passionate about his interests," unquote, with one whose premise essentially, quote, "it's cringe funny because he's being unnecessarily over dramatic and creepy," unquote. Quote, "Hell yeah, I do," unquote. The protagonist responds in the anime. Quote, I love her love rivalry with Liliel and the cute, sexy flirting she does with Ashford, unquote. No wonder people might actually consider machine translations, right?
Yep.
Metal, you can probably speak to this a bit more. So you looked at how it's translated the first time, which was probably considered closer to what the author's original intent was, and you get this translation. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's just it's not the worst I've seen, to be honest, but it is basically just ignoring what the spirit of the line is in favor of what they just wanted to write the line as.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, I've seen way worse from these same people, but like, yeah, it's not good.
Exactly. You hit the nail right on the head there. These people not only not only are they interjecting their own narratives and their own ideological stances into these stories, but they are in essence perverting the creator's original intent in doing so, completely changing the context of what's being said there. And by extension, completely changing what the story is actually doing.
Yeah. And I
it's
understand,
like
there isn't a really good translation for Emoto in English, and you wouldn't want to just leave that word there, right? You wouldn't want to say like little sister or younger sister, because that doesn't capture the meaning of it, because you're not literally talking about a younger sister. Or that's not even like the literal feelings that somebody has when they use those words. I guess you could say something. She's like, I'm trying to think of it. My little darling or something would be fine. But you're trying to have a connotation that you don't actually have any romantic feelings towards this person, right?
Right.
Like it's a rough one because we just don't have that symbolism in English, right? You have to come up with something, but like you can still try to come up with something instead of completely changing the meaning of the word, or the meaning of the line altogether.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's one of the things I think a lot of people get at is like when people like Katrina do this stuff, right? They
Well,
completely
actually, I know a way of doing it. Right, instead of trying to say things literally, you could reword the whole sentence into saying, I would protect her like she was my sister. I think that would probably get the spirit of what he's saying across.
Yeah. Anyways, continuing on. Let's see. Quote, she knows he'll never feel the same, unquote, he continues, but still carries a flame for him in her pure heart. I guess it's still so. Then the localization takes a turn for the worse as Leonodakis.
I've seen this part.
You've seen this part?
This is the part of the because I've seen people complaining about this exact line. I didn't know this is what it was from, but I've seen this part where they use like
when
the
you
internet
covered
slang.
it or something, or
yeah. Well, no, I didn't cover it. I've just seen this on Twitter. This exact line that's coming up.
Versus Leonodakis proceeds to replace the remaining portion of Okamura's passionate speech with her signature quote, internet meme and slang influenced fan fiction. Quote, she's got a cute figure and a great ass. And real otaku love a flat-chested lady, unquote. The anime version of the otaku argues, quote, Tig bitties would ruin her whole vibe anyway. All right. You know what I think Katrina's trying to do there with that line?
She's trying to sound hip.
Well, no. So I'm thinking something else altogether.
Oh, okay. What are you thinking?
She's trying to make the otaku here sound more like he's a pedophile.
I don't know about that. Right, especially because like even going backwards, I mean, there's a lot of adult ladies who are flat-chested, right?
Well,
there is like a big.
I do get that, but I mean,
the flat is justice thing is like a really old thing. It's more about the wording here that I think is the issue, right? The term "tiggle bitties" is a lot older than internet slang. But replacing big titties with tig bitties has become like a staple on the internet. And they're trying to make him sound like he's an internet otaku, like he's like this. They're trying to use like hip slang language that would be kind of cringe off the internet, but people use all the time. When even then, this is probably not the way this person would speak if you translated what they said into English.
Yeah, and I agree with that because I don't think like even their youth, even Japanese youth, as far as I know, still speak more formally than Katrina's giving them credit.
It is a rough job, right? because to some degree you want to incorporate slang, and you want it to match whatever the time period is. So if it's a modern show that takes place in the day that it's written, then you want to somewhat appropriately include modern slang so that it's period appropriate in the language you're talking about. But you're like walking a tightrope because you need to do so only in the way that it captures the mannerisms of that character. So like if you're dealing with a delinquent, then you can use harsher slang and you could slur your words a little bit or whatever. But if you're dealing with like a nerd or a stuck-up person, like, I don't know, like I said, it is a very tough thing to do that you kind of have to be a talented localizer and translator to do. That sometimes if you're not that talented, it's probably better to just steer away from it and keep to formal language.
Yeah. Well, before I continue on, I do need to step away one more time from the camera for a moment, take care of something here, the lighting here. But when I get back, we'll try to get through this as fast because I know we're already at 2.5 hours here. But I really wanted to get your thoughts on these two articles, Metal. That's why I just went with it. So one of those rare occasions where we'll take a lot longer than usual. But anyways, I'll be right back.
I do think, just keeping on the subject while he's gone, that you should probably steer clear of using too much slang in the language you're localizing to if the character themselves don't use a lot of slang in their language, right? Which, again, is something that's rough, because the only way that you would get that is if you could read the original Japanese, which a lot of these people can't do, right? They get like an already translated version. They have to kind of like just make it work in their local language or local culture. So it's like slang and idioms are often what gets killed through machine translation or any other type of translation, even if it's just like somebody in the studio who happens to speak English that they learned while they were in Japan. If you don't already know the local slang and you try to take something that's like modern colloquialisms in Japanese, then you're like, how can I explain this Japanese colloquialism in English? And you might have to use like 5 to 10 words to explain it, which means there's definitely not going to be the impression that you need in the local language. Which is why I think localizers should have to speak the language.
I don't think so good night spoon. I think he's just changing the lighting around in his room or whatever, so you can see the screen better or whatever.
Yeah, he's binging true crime. That's why he's asking about the whole cell maze thing, or like whether you can make it out of prison or make it in prison.
All right. Anyways, I'm back now. Yeah, I just had to take the blanket down I had over my window because the sun's down enough now. You know, it's like almost 7:30 here in California. So,
yes, how would I fare in prison? Listen, I can be a vicious psychopath, and I mean that literally. Like, I'm diagnosed. If I was in prison for my own survival, I would probably get several extended sentences if somebody decided to do something. Otherwise, I would just keep to myself.
Yeah, that's something I'd probably do. Just keep to myself.
anyways, let's get back to the article here. So, clearly shaken by Okamura's passions, Mikari then snaps back, quote, "You said you'd never cheat on Lilio," unquote, to which Okamura clarifies, quote, "Yeah, Lilio's my waifu. Mirella's my Emoto," unquote. Quote, "I don't want to be your GD sister," Mikari exclaims in turn, literally translating to little sister in parentheses here. The term emoto refers to those younger female characters who have romantic crushes, often unrequited, on an older male with whom they have a close relationship, such as a close friend, a stepbrother, or in some more extreme cases, even a blood-related brother. And oh boy, that last word there reminds me of one in particular. I can't even think of it now, but there was a anime I watched a while ago where the adult brother, like the 30-year-old brother, actually ended up having a thing for his 15-year-old sister. It was his actual sister, and then they end up, I don't know if you ever heard. I think it starts with an M or something like that, but can't really think of it off the top of my head. It'd be very controversial if a lot of people saw it. But anyways,
like this article actually does a really good job of bringing up. They're not bringing it up in the way that it is an issue, but they accidentally point out the issue with the term Imoto, is that it's a very specific thing that it's not like this doesn't happen in our culture. It's just that like we don't have specific words for it, but it's like a one-way relationship. It's almost like friend zoning a girl, right? Where you see the girl as kind of like a very close personal friend, but you wouldn't want to have a relationship with them, but they might have a crush on you. And which is actually not uncommon in real life. A lot of girls kind of have like a non-romantic crush on their older brothers anyway, because often the type of guys they end up dating end up being like their older brothers if they have them. But it shows this like dynamic that they have a single word for this dynamic that we don't have, and you kind of have to take some other way of explaining the dynamic if you're going to translate it.
Right. As such, Leonidaki's specific defining of the word to mean sister, rather than in small quotes, character who has an unrequited crush on someone, completely overwrites the manga's original gag, wherein, due to her own feelings for her friend Mikari, reads way more into Okamura's explanation than he ever intended. Again, going back to the point I was making earlier, the whole idea of what these people do is to insert their own narrative or try to push their own agenda. They will, as they said here, overwrite what the author originally intended. And that's what's getting a lot of people upset. They don't want... I don't want, if I was to read this, if I was to read an English, or if I was to watch this anime, I don't want Katrina's viewpoint of what this relationship is. I want what the original, because, that's the thing. And I know y'all flat talked about this before. Part of the reason why people are going more to anime and manga as opposed to, Western stuff is because they're not trying to push agendas. They're just trying to tell good stories and good, relatable stories. I don't want to be preached to about, how to treat a woman. I think I have a pretty good idea how to treat a woman. I think most people do, most people know how to handle themselves, handling the opposite sex. Okay? It's like, we don't want your reinterpretation of another person's work there, you little girl.
Yeah, because even if I want to be charitable, let's say there was no actual agenda behind this, and let's say Katrina here just wanted this person to come off as like one of these like turbo enthused internet nerds, right? Which I've seen without necessarily the slang, that exact type of discussion happen on the internet where people, again, there's like the curvy crowd versus the flattish justice crowd. That's like an actual thing that happens on the internet. And she was just trying to make the character feel more flavorful. Let's be as charitable as possible. It still just doesn't fit the spirit of what was being said.
Exactly.
Right? Like you're trying to paint this character into a stereotype that the character may not even fit because those weren't the words coming out of his mouth.
All right. So, yeah, exactly, though. Exactly. Following the release of the episode, took to Twitter to brag about her overwriting of the series' original script, asking her followers, quote, translation theory, hard at work in my subtitles, asking her followers this week, why might I have translated as Emoto instead of little sister? Asked by a follower, because Emoto is a word used by weebs to talk about the fantasy of having a little sister. Eliza exclaimed, correct. So, of course, something that was mentioned in the article earlier, not only is she mistranslating to push her own agenda, but also to attack the very readers who are reading this or people who are watching this, right?
Yeah, well, because like, again, this comes back to the problem with not actually understanding the culture you're translating from, which I find is so crazy that not even that you'd have people who don't understand the language localizing, right? That they're just relying on already translations, but somebody who doesn't even understand the culture that they're localizing from. While it's not that common, it is something that is mostly used in storytelling. Like, people don't often do this in real life, but it will occasionally still happen in high schools because people act this way. Emoto is a word that's actually used in Japanese. Waifu, that more is like nerd and like geek culture there. Though it is a term that historically has been used by people because it's literally just a Japanese, like, I guess, transliteration. It's them just trying to say the word wife, right? Like, they have husbando and waifu. It's just like a Japanese person trying to pronounce the English word wife. It's not very common for people to use it outside of jokingly, but it does show up in their media before it even gets translated, right? Like, it's not something that the weebs invented. It's something they took from the media that they watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So, anyways, let's continue on here. Leonodaki's butchering was then praised by professional anime video game localizer Sarah Moon, who affirmed, quote, I translated sister as Emoto and bride as waifu for the same exact reason. Quote unquote, love this, Leonodakis declared in turn. Doubling down on her work when later pressed, quote, why Tig Biddies does he goof up description on purpose in Japanese in a similar way too? Emoto makes sense. He's being an otaku weirdo. Leonodaki is proudly being, quote, yes. Actually, no, that's not what's happening. That's only Leonodaki's interpretation of what's happening.
Yeah, at no point does he even mention anything remotely like it.
Quote, yes, it's the end of a long rant about how much he loves this flat-chested character, in parentheses, real otaku love characters with flat chests. You were about to say something there?
Oh, no, I was saying, like, at no point does he say anything remotely like that in the rant.
Yeah. Katrina Leonodakis, Sentai Filmworks, High Dive, nor JC staff have responded at the time of this writing. Yeah, I'm sure part of the reason why like some of the Japanese publishers are starting to consider AI is stuff like this. When you completely pervert and completely change the intent and meaning of the original author's work, you know, that's going to upset a lot of people. It's going to upset fans. It's going to, when it gets back to the creators, it probably upsets a lot of creators too. That their work is being done like this, being treated like this. You know. So, anyways, so that's before we get to this weekend in each history segment, before we start to wrap up here, I know we ran kind of long here. Any final thoughts on what we just read, or anything else we've gone over the last couple articles here? What's your overall impressions of what we've read here? And Metal, I'll let you go first on that.
Oh, I don't really have any.
Don't have any? Just basically just what you said throughout what we're
Yeah.
talking about?
That's about it.
Yeah. Basically, the reason that that people are wanting AI is just simply because of stuff like this. Would you agree with that?
Hmm.
I know it sounds a little bit more simplistic, but we're trying to.
I think I'm just gonna go stick to my fan subs. They've been working fine enough for me. If anything, instead of necessarily employing machine translation, if I were these studios and I look at how popular these pirated fan subs are, I would try to hunt down the people who make these things and just employ them to do the localizations.
Yeah, the only problem is these people would probably be hard to find because they'd be afraid that they're going after them to keep them, to prosecute them.
Possibly. I think there's things you could do to gain their trust, but a lot of these translation groups actually have emails for contact. So, like, it's to keep the whole group anonymous. Like, you have to contact the group as a whole. But I feel like if you reached out to in good faith and you actually did something like show a sign of good faith, it wouldn't be hard to actually just hire these groups. I'm sure a lot of them, they're doing it for out of their own pleasure.
Mhm.
And one of the biggest issues that would be the problem here is that most want to do it because they feel like people should have easy access to this stuff. So, like, the big hesitation wouldn't be that they're getting paid for it, right? Because a lot of them would like the money. It's that other people would have to start paying for their work, and they want it to get to people for free. So trying to get over that hurdle will be an issue. But a lot of them, like, if you gave them the opportunity to give people easily accessible good translations, most of them would probably want to be on that, right? It's like, how would you make the compromise? That's the issue.
All right. So with that, okay, Rick, any final thoughts on what we've been talking about tonight?
Not really. Just like pretty much what I've been saying. I said most of I think everything was my thoughts all along.
Yeah.
It's just these people are a little crazy. Like
I think we all pretty much share the same opinion on a lot of this stuff here. All right. So with all that being said, today is of course Sunday, August the 11th, 2024. So why take a little bit of a look back at this weekend in each history. And first off, we're going to go back 90 years ago yesterday. As 90 years ago yesterday, since I pull it up here. 90 years ago yesterday, um, Celebrity Productions, Aladdin, and the Wooden Lamp. Now, Celebrity Productions, as far as I know, Bailey did a lot of their work for Disney. Would usually, they had Disney distribute their cartoon, and Terry Toons, which of course eventually gave us Mighty Mouse. Paul Terry, Busted Blossoms, both Celebrity Productions, Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp, and Terry Toons' Busted Blossoms, both premiered in movie theaters on yesterday's date 90 years ago, back in 1934. And moving on to the next piece in each history here. Moving ahead to 1999, to 1999. On this date, 25 years ago today, the first issue of Sam and Twitch from Image Comics went on sale on this date back in 1999, 25 years ago. It ran for 26 issues, by the way. The story was Udaku, Part 1, written by Brian Michael Bendis, penciled by Angel Medina, inked by Jonathan Glapion, lettering done by Richard Starkings, and Todd Broker did the coloring. So, Sam and Twitch #1 from Image Comics went on sale on this date 25 years ago.
Never heard of it, but given the fact that it was written by Bendis, I'm going to assume that I'm not going to enjoy it.
It was 25 years ago. It might have been before he went woke, but
no, it's not about woke. I just don't think Bendis has ever really been that good of a writer.
actually, you're not
Brevity is
the
not
only one,
his
because I
strong
think
point.
I've heard Yellow Flash say the same thing.
Like, I didn't even like it back when he was writing Ultimate Spider-Man or anything like that. Like, I've never cared for it.
Yeah.
I like the Ultimate Spider-Man.
So
But
now moving ahead to 2014, which was just 10 years ago today. So 10 years ago today, WWE held on the Go Home Raw before SummerSlam. WWE held its Monday Night Raw from the Moda Center in Portland, Oregon. And the main event saw Randy Orton defeat Sheamus. Heath Slater defeated Dolph Ziggler via countout. Let's see. Jack Swagger defeated Cesaro. Seth Rollins defeated Rob Van Dam. In the opening match of the evening, saw Roman Reigns defeat Ryback of Curtis Axel and Ryback in a 2-on-1 handicap match. So 10 years ago today from the Moda Center in Portland, Oregon, WWE held its Monday Night Raw event. So with that, I do think everybody...
Did you do anything for yesterday, the 10th?
Yeah, the very first thing I talked about was...
Yeah. My bad.
All right. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. So before we do leave, of course, I want to give my panelists here a chance if they want to, of course, do any outros. Of course, talk about, promote anything they're doing, talk about anything they're. So I guess I'll start with you, Metal, and then we'll go to Rick, and then I'll wrap things up.
I don't want to say much, but hey, anybody want to see a cover I finished for a comic that's coming out later this year?
Sure.
It's pretty cool.
Sure, if you want to show it. In fact,
Yeah,
I'll even enlarge. I'll even give me a sec here, and I'll enlarge you. In fact.
Yeah. It's for a comic called The Dreamscape Dilemma. It's gonna be really fun. I'm not the artist, though. I did color this cover, and then I did.
It's
all
nice
the
and bright.
Stuff too.
It's nice and bright.
Oh yes, I wanted it to be nice and bright. A lot of the coloring pattern is similar to how like Rumiko Takahashi colors her covers. I wanted to give it a nice cartoon vibe. It's going to have some inspiration by a lot of different things, including like Winsor McKay's Little Nemo is one of the inspirations on the overall story. But there's a lot of general things. Digimon is also an inspiration on this story. But it's going to follow a bunch of kids down in the dreamscape, which is like the place where... what's it called? Consciousness rises up from, and there's like a whole issue down there. They get brought down. I also noticed for some reason there's a chroma key on this because you can see through Zeba's hair down there. I don't like that. Let me fix that real quick. There we go. But yeah, it'll be fun. And I've got I'm working with an artist who is drawing it. I'm just doing the writing.
Your comic?
Kind of like Little Nemo in Slumberland, right?
Yeah, which I mentioned. Yes, this is technically my comic. It is an Next Time is Chaos. That's why Zeba's down there at the bottom corner. It's going to be a premium comic, a paid one. I don't know what it's going to cost yet because the first issue is like how a lot of manga starts. It's extended, so it's like 30 pages instead of the normal 20. It'll be digital first. Maybe I'll charge $2 for it.
Are you going to try and do a crowdfunding campaign for it?
No, I'm not crowdfunding this. As I said, it's digital first. You'll be able to get it on Global Comics, and maybe I'll also sell PDFs of it on my website. And then if there's a demand for it, I'll do a print run.
All right.
Cool.
Anything more you want to add?
Nope, that's it. I don't know when it's coming out, but it'll be sometime this year.
All right. So now we'll move on to Rick then. Rick, you want to go ahead and do an outro?
Well, again, as in the beginning, I'll just put my link to my channel. If anybody is, liking a little bit of what I said or whatever tonight, go check out my channel. And if you like what you're seeing there, hit that like. Hit the like button on those videos, but hit the subscribe button and help me get up to 100,000 subs. and watch as much as you can on my channel. It'll help me get up to, the 3,000 watch hours or 4,000 watch hours.
Yeah. All right. So with that, I do think. Oh, I'm sorry, Rick. Did you have something more you wanted?
I was just saying that was it for me. So.
All right. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Rick will hopefully be joining me tomorrow night as we cover more niche news. Rick is actually going to be here for the next 2, 3, 5 of the next 8 days, actually, maybe 6 of the next 9, as it were, because of course hopefully he'll be in tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm here tomorrow.
And Rick will also be joining me this Friday for the historical comic retrospect, as we will be looking
back
at
next Sunday and next Monday. Week from tomorrow.
Yeah. Actually, I forgot to ask. Well, I could ask afterwards. I forgot to ask how your thing went yesterday. On Friday, you're going off.
So one comic.
All right. So with that, hopefully I'll see everybody. We'll hopefully see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.